The theme for today's live stream is From Tourist to Insider, your success system for here in New Europe. So, as always, with these live streams, I need to check my camera angle. Oh, yes, that's actually pretty good. Let me just take that off. I think it looks better than normal, actually. So we're all good on that. Please let me know if there's a problem with the audio. If I ramble on for half an hour without looking at the chat and you haven't told me, then sometimes I end up not realizing there's some issue with the audio. Sometimes it clips. It has been a rare problem. And I am in Odessa, Mama, on the shores of the Black Sea. And on this channel, if you're new, Привет and greetings from Odessa, as I just said, on the shores of the Black Sea in Ukraine. And if you're wondering what I mean by New Europe, then I'm referring to a region between Germany and Russia, the Russian Federation in general. So countries like Poland, here in Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, can also be Czechia. I do tend to focus on a select number of countries that I know very well, that I help my clients with. And in general, those countries happen to be very good if you are a high level single guy. It can also be great in a couple. Normally, my clients who are in a couple who are here are with someone who's from this region in general. There are a few very rare exceptions on that. It is quite hard to persuade, say, an American, a British woman, or Australian who doesn't have any family ties or some sort of past history with the region to suddenly up sticks and move to even Poland, I would say, although that will change, I'm pretty sure, in the near future. And in general, I'm helping my clients with leveraging lifestyle arbitrage to gain an advantage here in New Europe. You could even say a bit of an unfair advantage. Well, life isn't fair in general. And I was watching another lifestyle YouTuber who I've mentioned a few times on these live streams, Joshua Hall, and I'm going to paraphrase something that he said on his last live streams, which I think encapsulates very well what I do in this channel. I help winners win more. He was actually talking about how it's better to help winners win more than to try and turn a loser into a winner. Wouldn't be that abrasive or dramatic in my statement on this channel, I think. But regardless, you can get a lot of value out of the type of substance that I'm going to cover today. The topic being how to come to this region and not have the tourist experience, but have a little bit more of an insider experience. The insider is actually what one of my previous clients was on this channel and tons of videos back in 2019, 2020. Philip, he said, I am the insider for him in this region. So I always think it's a good way of summing it up. That's what you want to be when you spend time in this region. It's going to allow you to have an advantage in terms of business, lifestyle in general, building up a cool social circle, and probably most important for the guys who are single, actually meeting really beautiful, high quality women in general and being able to figure out which ones are going to be a good long-term match for you as well. The weather, just to give you an update in Odessa, you might say I'm actually sweating a little bit. It's because it suddenly changed. Basically, I think yesterday evening, there was a little bit of moisture in the air. And then today, yeah, it's been very muggy and been raining a lot. So very different to what we've had in the previous a few days. It has basically been summer here. And yeah, end of May is when the summer season kicks off in earnest in Odessa. It'll actually kick off really next weekend in Chișinău. So I am going to do this live stream, but as the Sunday show with this format, we've been doing it for about 3 months here on the channel. And normally these live streams are around 3 to 4 hours. I think if I am in Chișinău next weekend, enlarging it up, I'm probably not going to do a 4-hour live stream afterwards. I have the second channel for the stuff that's in Ukraine. Go and click on that link and subscribe and hit the notifications bell so that you're notified. And there I will be doing lots of live streams, in particular one tomorrow here in Odessa, discussing the May 9th weekend. It was Europe Day. It's celebrating Russia's Victory Day. And if you've been paying attention, Vladimir Putin is in a lot of trouble. And that's been something that has been building up, something I've outlined in great detail originally on this channel, and now on the second channel where I do most of the geopolitics to do with Ukraine. So if you're interested, make sure that you're subscribed because it will have a lot of interesting content coming. So it is basically summer season here, and the weather changed, and I wasn't expecting it to be so warm in this apartment. I just changed the thermostat there, but apparently it doesn't happen immediately. So normally, yeah, in Ukraine during this winter, we had a problem with the heating when Russia kept turning, blowing stuff up. And now I have the opposite problem, ironically, this evening. But anyways, it's a small thing to complain about. And with respect, I guess I get the Odessa update out of the way since I've already started talking a little bit about it. Right now, everything works if you come here basically to Ukraine. Just a reminder that my special offer on my in-person immersion for the summer 2026 for Ukraine, you have until May 17th, which is next Sunday, to apply. You can go down below and see the link in the description to this live stream where you can read more about the in-person immersion, my flagship New Europe experience, and the price restructuring will occur for those who apply after May 17th. So you want to get in now and apply before next Sunday. So this might basically go and fill out the application form this evening or whenever you watch this, if you're watching it on replay, and make sure you get it in so that you're grandfathered through to have the current price structure. And it will be a special bespoke itinerary this summer if you're interested in coming here to Ukraine. Everything works. Just to recap, too long didn't read version of what I've covered in detail in so many live streams and videos. I will have a new video actually about Ukraine and coming here this summer. Should be out sometime next week. And assuming that you have a nationality that allows you to come here visa free, so you're British or American, you basically just arrive at the border and you have 90 days visa free for 180 days here in Ukraine, and then everything should work. Your card should work. It's no problem to change money. Internet is working, electricity is working in general. To any of the cities that are far from the front line, like Lviv, Odessa, here, well, I'm in Odessa, so up in Kyiv, the capital, Chernovtsi, and Uzhhorod, those are the five. They're also the ones that I feature in my guide. That's also down below. You can find the link to that. If you come here, it's going to save you a huge amount of time where I outline my favorite cafes, restaurants, bars, clubs, all that good stuff down there, so you don't have to spend probably your limited time if you come here to Ukraine during the summer. If you're doing a DIY version, do it yourself, you can go and invest in that down below. And everything should work pretty well. We just have curfew between midnight and 5 a.m. So that does not apply to Uzhhorod in the Zakarpatska Oblast. And in reality, Lviv, it's a lot more flexible on the curfew. Here in Odessa is strict. So places to socialize in the evening, they tend to start a lot earlier than they would have before because we have curfew at midnight, from midnight to 5 a.m. You could party all night at some places, but then you're not allowed legally to go on the street until 5 a.m. So it depends if you're up for that all night partying or not. And of course, you do have the risk of Russian munitions, so rockets and drones, and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. As I've outlined, the statistical chance of being injured or killed by a Russian munition, if you were in a city far from the front line, so in Lviv, in Kyiv, in Odessa, is like 1 in a million per day. So yeah, you can factor that in. It's not a huge risk on an individual basis, but you do need to be prepared for air alerts that go off quite frequently, and you may hear explosions, air defense, and hopefully, touch wood, that you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time if you do decide to come here. But just be aware of all that. Anyways, just make sure if you are considering it, some of you on these live streams have expressed interest in particular in coming to Lviv, which is the first city basically across the border from Poland. So if you are interested in that, then for sure I am up for providing you an in-person mentorship in Lviv this summer. I think it's going to be absolutely top here in Odessa by about mid-June, I would say, but it'll kick off with the opening parties. And one of my friends was telling me last week, when it was maybe 2 weeks ago now, when I bumped into him, that that it's basically a sellout already in Ibiza Beach Club, and getting the top tables are already gone. They were gone within like an hour or two, and huge deposits. And so there's definitely, because of there being less seaside available to Ukrainians, a lot of Ukrainians can't leave. Men between 23 and 60 cannot leave without justification. Then you just have a lot of people who are going to party here on the shores of the Black Sea. So that is the Odessa section out of the way. In the meantime, basically, as I go through the presentation tonight and some other ancillary information that I give you, before we get to the Q&A, you can write your questions and your comments down below, and I will come to them then in sequence. I see everything is working, and many of you are discussing it already, and you're asking me about Odessa and the city Moldova. I will come to that in the Q&A in about, I guess it will be about 20 or 30 minutes time, normally by the time we get to the Q&A. So just keep your comments and your questions coming, and I will get to those in due course. So is there anything else that I want to say before we start on? Yes, from last week, there were a few things that were not addressed that some of you asked me. One of them was best case scenario for Ukraine. Basically best case scenario for Ukraine and worst case scenario for Ukraine with respect to the United Arab Emirates leaving OPEC. OPEC is basically a cartel to do with the production of petroleum. And OPEC leaving would, in theory, lead to an increase in supply, which would push price for petroleum downwards. That is good for Ukraine in principle, because not only would they be able to buy it cheaper on the global markets, it would also mean that Russia, which is not able to significantly increase its capacity at the moment, its production, would not make as much money. They make less money. Less money for Russia means less things that they can buy to throw at Ukraine and try to destroy the country here. So that's all good. The downside might be that there might be a lot of fracturing in terms of maybe alliance coordination between the West and countries in the Middle East, might lead to some more instability, and it's unclear where that could go. So that might affect maybe the West a little bit in general, which when we say the collective West is kind of fractured also at the moment with the current White House administration with respect to Ukraine, but basically European partners of Ukraine that are the ones supporting it meaningfully, along with a few other allies across the globe. But in reality, the current White House administration doesn't help Ukraine that much. Apparently, they still give intel and they sell some weapons to the Europeans to pass on to Ukraine, but that's about it. And J.D. Vance, the U.S. Vice President, is super proud of that. He says the thing he's most proud of is not capturing Maduro in U.S. foreign policy. It's cutting off aid to Ukraine. So that will tell you enough about well, probably you can guess how I feel about the current White House administration when I hear J.D. Vance say that. Well, I'm sure me and the Pope agree on a few things about J.D. Vance at the moment. So, and yeah, so that was a question that came up. I didn't really address it so thoroughly last time because, yeah, it was a question that I hadn't considered. What happens with OPEC? In general, it'll be good for Ukraine. I think that's the bottom line, is the most likely outcome. So things that were still on the list for tying up from last week. Yeah, just in general, if you could write down your motivation for being interested in this region in general, can be anything, just let me know. It's always good to be able to make these live streams more relevant, since you come onto them for several hours on a Sunday, and that you get more value. Are you thinking of this region because you want to optimize your lifestyle? Which word would optimize? Or you want to transform your lifestyle in terms of seeing this region as because since I discuss lifestyle leverage and I help winners win more, as I said in the intro, and basically I'm trying to help normally high level guys. I mean, if you're not high level, you can still aim to be high level and get a lot of value out of these live streams and the content. But basically, I'm trying to help them gain more freedom, leverage, more opportunities that can then translate into making more money, being more healthy, both psychologically and physically. And then, of course, relationships, which is what this channel probably, if you take it from its very inception, back in 2018, when I used to have it branded as the Tsar experience. Fortunately, the wannabe Tsar in the Kremlin has ruined that particular branding, and now it is rebranded as New Europe Experience. And since, if I looked at all the content in total, it probably deals the most with relationships. Yeah, let me know each of those kind of words, whether you see it as a transformation, an optimization, maybe you're interested in business, making relocation, maybe it's just a trip, maybe you're only interested in the women. Just let me know in the comment section down below what your primary motivations are. So no shame about what they actually are in general. So I was, as I've said, I think the last two live streams, considering taking a break this weekend. But since we have this weather and summer season starts in earnest in Chișinău next weekend, and after that it will be summer season down in Arcadia here in Odessa, I have decided to, I guess, with a nice wrap up for these Sunday shows, to focus on transforming. I guess I'm doing a transforming from tourist to insider or the local VIP with a system. The reason I use the word system is I could see in the comments in some of the last live streams and also reacting to other YouTubers that I see that don't necessarily come to this region so much, but then some of them do, but just globally, they don't seem to approach relocation, even if it's just temporary, with a system in mind. They're kind of chancing their arm. There's a lot of serendipity involved. And if I look back at my own history with coming to this region and traveling in general, since I traveled to so many countries, almost, I think, maybe almost 100 globally, not so many new ones in the last decade, but when I was in my 20s and 30s, I traveled quite extensively. I also, in hindsight, was relying on a lot of luck when I was going places. And of course, if you're traveling, there's that kind of spontaneity and character building from traveling, especially if it's a solo mission, that is very rewarding, but it's not very efficient in terms of reaching what your goals are going to be, because you're basically putting it down to luck. Now, luck is always going to be an element involved in basically anything you're going to do, but you want to minimize the amount of room for it just being based on luck and actually have a system in place that's going to allow you to be more likely to achieve what you want. You have a better time, no matter what it is, maybe make more money, with using the maybe cost of living differentials, investing in real estate, meeting the love of your life or many loves of your life when you're here. And one thing that struck me is this discussion that I saw where some of you were saying that you went to cities like Tallinn and to Riga in what I dubbed the New York Baltics, and maybe also you were throwing in there Vilnius, and you were basically having the tourist experience. You weren't really getting much value, and you were actually a little bit surprised that I talk so glowingly about those cities, especially if we leave out the winter weather, in terms of lifestyle, and especially in terms of being a single guy in those cities. Some of you said that you were single there, and basically you didn't understand why I was saying that there were so many attractive women, because you couldn't even see them, which is remarkable considering that is the part of the world with the most catwalk models per capita of anywhere. So they're definitely there, but because you have more the tourist approach to things, in my opinion, then you don't know where to hang out, where to go, how to integrate yourself, how to actually gain access to those opportunities. And that just doesn't purely go for romantic relationships. It can also be for business relationships, and getting the most out of being in a particular city. So really, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's been kind of churning in my mind a little bit. It's so odd that, and I've discussed it with other clients who've been with me, for example, in Riga, and they're like, how can they not think it's a super place? And now it is small, just to add the caveat, it's not a city of 2 or 3 million people or 10 million people. It's less than a million. So I understand that maybe living there all year round, especially with the winter weather, isn't that appealing at times. But what was mentioned, and what I've seen other people online say, especially these dating coaches, is that basically there's no reason to go there. The women are basically unfriendly, and you don't see so many beautiful women around, when it is the place where per capita there are the most of them. So just a slight digression, I also once had that kind of similar experience in a way in Brazil, in the sense that there's also a concentration where the models come from. And I actually went to that region, and the first day, because I showed up as a tourist, I didn't understand. I was looking at the street. I guess I thought there would be like just a line of eights, nines, and tens just walking down the street somewhere, wherever I was. But no, I was like, God, people are a little bit ugly in the city. What's going on? I don't understand how this can be where they come from. And then later on, obviously, because I researched it properly and started to make context, and actually went there, I guess, with the kind of system or plan that I'm going to explain to you to a certain extent on tonight's live stream. Then I figured how, yeah, they really do come from that region, that part of Brazil, but you need to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you just basically will be left bewildered as to why the stats don't line up with your reality. So I think there is, uh, judging by the comments that I've seen, a lot of guys that then end up saying, yeah, it's the city's fault. Oh, the city's bad, rather than, which I guess is because they're reflecting their experience there, when the potential is there, but it's not so obvious to unlock that. And I watch a lot of other content nowadays, not really about this region, but just other places in the world people are relocating to, and especially other guys who are single. And yeah, they just watched one yesterday where the guy seemed pretty informed, and he was like, "Yeah, Rio is ruined. Now we show up. The it's not that cheap." Which okay, that's a little bit more objective. And he said the girls are not interested. There's so many other foreigners. There's no foreigner factor. It seems a lot of guys are just hoping that they'll just come across this El Dorado that's undiscovered in 2026, which is just got line to line supermodels who are all there waiting for them because they're a foreigner and making it super easy when that's not the case. Now, it might have been the case in 1991 or 1992 when the Soviet Union collapsed in this region. And, it was a completely different socioeconomic and political reality. And travel wasn't so easy. We didn't have social media where people actually understand what it was like in the outside world. They just had like Hollywood films maybe as their source. And you could just rock up to a city like Riga and then be the celebrity just by being American, and people go America, as I kind of make fun of a little bit at times, that stereotype. And it probably still exists. I did make a reference to this in a video I made. I remember I filmed a video in Almaty in Kazakhstan. I can't remember what the topic was, where I relayed an anecdote from, like, it was actually a friend of mine. He had a cousin and he showed me pictures from the wedding, and his cousin friend was like dating this girl who looked like, she's model beauty. And my friend said, yeah, back home, he would be like, he's such an average Joe. I mean, he didn't use the word average Joe, but that's what he meant. And there he's dating like the equivalent of Miss Ireland. The guy was Irish, right? And he'd been an English teacher in Ukraine. And it's like, yeah, those kind of, I mean, he also lived in the country, wasn't showing up as a weekend warrior. But yeah, just showing up as maybe a English teacher, which doesn't take a lot of, doesn't take massive amount of skill. I mean, if you're a native English speaker, to start teaching English, you travel was something that was very common for guys and girls who were traveling around, right? I think now with the ability to do it remotely with these online platforms, maybe there's less in-person work. I'm not really sure, but something that at the time, and I had a friend who did it for many years, would give you a certain amount of access and I guess status, which today I can't see it working out that way, that someone showing up as an average Joe, and most people are going to be between a 4 and a 6 statistic. I think it's like 68% on a bell curve. So, and then they're going to be dating the top 5% or whatever. I did that video many years ago when I was in Warsaw about what is 9 and 10 level beauty in this region. And you can I think it's a great video if you're not watching. I have it already linked down below in the description, and I'll put up in a card if you're watching a replay, and put those cards in normally the day after, because there you can see also how the beauty and how we, because as men, basically, men and women, in reality, once we know people, we have the same. Pretty much, we judge people in 1 and 10 around the same. It's not a huge difference. The problem is, the big difference is that women, if they don't know men, because it's an unfamiliar environment, then they rate most men as unattractive. You can see that video. It's all in that video, and how if a Ukrainian girl moves all the way to maybe to London or over to the US, how she's going to be judged to probably 1 or 2 or maybe even higher than that points out of 10 higher, because in general, just the level of beauty and how she's appreciated is going to increase. And especially if you meet someone over here and then you want to bring back to your home country, that can be very problematic. I had another video, I remember I shot it in front of, now destroyed by the Russians. It was the Trubetskoy vineyard in Novokhovka. I'll put that down below, maybe after the live stream. You can look at it. It's about value gap, and basically if you move someone from one environment to another, this is all good for your education. Anyways, to get back to discussing the ability of just showing up like it was back in the day. And I also hear this from a lot of guys who were kind of, I dubbed them the veterans of the region. They probably came here maybe 20 years ago when they were in their mid maybe late 20s or early 30s, and now they're in their mid 50s or maybe around 50, and they complain constantly. It's not like back in the old days where I guess they rocked up in their late 20s and they were all superstars, and now they've also aged a bit. As a guy, you can still be at your peak. I used to say between 35 and 45. Now, according to Orion Taraban, he says it goes into your early 50s. I would say up to 50. Of course, now I'm 47, maybe have a slight bias to say that your peak is a little bit longer than previously I've said, maybe 5 years ago on this channel. But nonetheless, those days are gone. You need to have a plan to, I mean, you probably always needed a plan in order to succeed easier. But now, this idea of just showing up and being from wherever it happens to be, United Kingdom or somewhere else, and thinking that that's just going to mean that everybody is interested in you and everything's going to be easy. Also, the cost of living differential, while they're still attractive, have changed. So you need to basically come with a more structured plan if you're going to be successful. Doesn't mean that you 100% need a plan. You can still leave everything down to serendipity, to chance, and maybe work out for you. And I've seen it occasionally work out for guys, even though they didn't have a good plan. But in general, I also see that the guys who succeed the most, including one of my clients who I actually learned a lot from once he had moved to Kyiv back in the day, because man, was so good at doing this, and I could see the difference. It's like, yeah, he's dating the 22-year-old models, and yeah, it's not because of luck, it's because he has this structured approach. He's networking with the uh, young and trendy celebrities in the city. He's friends with politicians, really, and he's doing lots of business as well. So it wasn't just that he was only chasing chicks; they were kind of coming as the added bonus, basically, from his social circle. So that is why that's the genesis of the idea for today's live stream. It is that what I've noticed on these live streams in terms of, let me see what's in here, that a lot of you, I think, would get a lot of value from a discussion on this. So I see lots of questions or lots of comments coming in. So I see it's a lot of the usual suspects. So definitely you will enjoy the discussion this evening. So I think there's a bit of a mindset shift that is valuable to have, and that's going from the kind of tourist. You could say it's kind of the drifter. I sometimes refer to digital drifters. They have an online job of sorts. It's maybe a middle class job, and of course, with the cost of living differentials, if you can do it online, then let's just say you were able to make 3,000 euros per month after taxes, and that would be what a middle class maybe salary. But if you move to the Philippines, it's probably put you in the top 5% of wage earners all of a sudden. But if you come here, yeah, it's going to put you up. I don't know, would it put you in the top 20% in Ukraine at the moment? Probably. Although the guys in the military almost make that, a lot of them, in terms of if they're volunteers. So it's a little bit hard for me to say. But basically, you will be able to live a higher standard of living, but they come with this kind of tourist mentality all the time. They're not really interested in the places. Their main motivation here is cheap, and they don't really make connections. They normally look for other people who are also digital drifters, and they're kind of going from city to city. Sometimes because I have this channel, they come up to me. A lot of them just because it's in my mind now. We're doing the day game malarkey outside the train station in Warsaw, and my conclusion, having some of them, spoke to me at length, is that they weren't really doing that to try and meet women. I didn't say this, but when I asked them how many women do you actually meet doing this for at least romantic, and they were saying almost never. I was like, man, why are you doing this then? This is like a terrible investment of your time. And I realized that they were hanging around the other guys who were doing it. They were meeting each other in forums. They were basically doing it to have a community effect, to have friends. It was like a group activity. As sad as that sounds, that was my impression. I've spoken to a handful of them who came up to me. But basically, they have these very surface level experiences with the local. They're either, I mean, maybe the day game example is a bit extreme, but they're usually relying on apps, which in 2026, if you're using dating apps, you're not going to be in the top few percent, almost certainly, in terms of the dating market, because it's not where women who have options really want to go. I know that there's just a stat from the US that most people are now meeting online. That is not the people near the top, it's the people in the middle and the bottom who are doing that. It is the way it is what it is. I did a live stream a few years ago with a dating coach who what is his name? Alex was his name. It's a Finnish chick or something like that. He was originally born in Belarus. I think it's Alex Playing with Fire was his channel. And he was surprised when I told him, listen, like attractive women are not meeting men online in general, maybe on Instagram. And then he went out to Miami, so and he stopped women that he thought were way above average for Miami, right? So obviously a high level, regardless of where you are. And he asked them, okay, where did you meet your boyfriend? And he was shocked that hardly any of them had met in dating apps. A few had met on Instagram, and there was the odd one that had met on a dating app. But basically, they had met through social circle, going to events, and yeah, Instagram. So that is where the quality, or the women who have options, shall we say, more options they have, they don't really want to spend their time on these dating apps, because for them, a lot of guys can obviously just like kind of catfishing. There's an expression, chat fishing. Right now they use AI, but guys can also have a misleading profile that they really, could also be a dangerous guy. So in general, for them, it's just a lot of time trying to screen through guys. I mean, if you're an attractive woman using a dating app, probably all the guys are probably going to match with you. There's going to be just too many. I did once have that kind of experience when I went to Brazil many years ago. It's well over 10 years ago. And yeah, I think I just swiped in everybody to see how many matches I would get. And it was just like so many after 2 days. It was like 200 or something. I was like, yeah, I can't be looking through all these. I need to do it from the outside and just be discerning, right? I mean, it's just too many. So anyways, that was my small, tiny glimpse into the world of an attractive woman on a dating app. And also, if you come with like, this is going to be cheap Europe kind of mindset, and it's really a little bit out of date. Yes, it is better value for money here, that's undoubtable. But I think other than maybe coming to Ukraine, because things are maybe like half price, primarily because of this war. If you go to the countries that are, say, like Poland, like my flat white index, as I refer to, because I drink flat white a few times a day. I just had one actually, and I paid. It was takeaway though, so it wasn't sitting down. So I actually paid under €2 here. But in Warsaw, I basically always pay well over €4. So like, I basically almost pay $5 for my flat white. Is it going to be more expensive if you go to London? Yes. If you go to Dublin, yes, but it's not massive. It's like if you go to same size city in Western Europe, it's probably going to be 20% more expensive. I'm even starting to doubt it's even that much. So it is better value, but it's not super cheap. And also, they come with the mentality that everything's going to be easy. They can just show up. They can, this, I guess, the passport bro idea that you just have their passport in the sense, and everyone's going to think they're super cool and interesting to hang out with. Maybe that was the case in 1996. It probably was. But in 2026, yeah, there's just people travel so much. They have access to information. They have social media. Uh, yeah, and there's just so many other guys traveling with the same idea. And yeah, it's like what I referred to before with alpha decay as an investment strategy, that, what worked in 1996, now because there's so many people doing it, it doesn't work, as it more or less doesn't really work in 2026. So if you come with that mindset, then it's going to be a lot more difficult. I'm not saying that there's zero chance that it can work for you, because I occasionally meet guys that have the mentality and they seem happy enough, but it's becoming harder and harder. And I see, especially when I review the channels about other places in the world, guys who have the mentality, they're basically going to more and more obscure places to try and find it. They're saying, hey, you can't go to anywhere in southern Brazil. You can't even go to Floripa. There's a Florianopolis, amazing place in south of Brazil, because there's so many other gringos there. You need to go to, I don't know, they're saying Manaus or somewhere else in the north of Brazil, which I'm sure is great for an experience, but they're not. There was one other city, was it Goiás, or somewhere else they were mentioning that now you have to go there. But yeah, it was like they would much prefer to stay in Rio, I'm sure, and actually have the right mindset to succeed than having to go somewhere that's pretty obscure and probably not going to be the same quality of life in reality. So a more insider mindset. And I remember I had one client I had, Paul, he was commenting, which is particularly pertinent because it was about Riga, is he was saying that we're kind of like local celebrities because we both spoke Russian. And in the place we socialized in, it was mainly Russian speaking. Like in Riga, it's like 50-50. The official language is Latvian of the country. It's the only official language. In reality, maybe half the people in Riga more or less speak Russian, and the other half are native speakers of Latvian in the country. Of almost like 2/3 are Latvian speaking. So because we were two foreigners, we spoke Russian, we were going to the right places and we made contacts. And I came regularly there. And he was like, yeah, we're like the two local celebrities, basically. We already have this network, cool guys to hang out with every time we go there, lots of pretty girls. The staff know us when we're hanging out. So that is the kind of more medium to long term positioning that you need to aim for and kind of get access to these ecosystems. I also then later on actually applied for a very prestigious event that I still have to feature on the channel, so I'll just not say what it is yet because I need to go back and to Riga and finish the filming. It was like a year ago almost at this point, so shame on me. But yeah, it turned out that it was also connected with the social circle that I had built up, and I didn't even know that. So when they invited me, I was a little bit like, oh, that's cool. And then it's only when I got there realized, yeah, on the first evening, there's a reason they all knew they kind of knew who I was already, or knew people who knew me. So these kind of access to networks, to introductions, it builds up your reputation. I would say that because you should go and watch my video if you're interested in Moldova. I saw it mentioned there in the comments. I'm pretty sure I have it down below already in the description. Where I filmed last year. I'm the only person on YouTube who basically goes to Moldova regularly and produces content that's actually positive about the places. I genuinely like it there, especially in Chișinău. And I don't hide the fact that the things I think that Moldova could improve on, but the rest of YouTube basically tries to, has a kind of a poverty porn attitude to filming there, where they basically just go around and film all the crappy stuff. Of course, you can go to the outskirts of any city, you can go to London and film the same stuff, which, it is what it is. And because of that, well, yeah, a lot of people tend to know who I am because they've seen my videos now online. And if I went to one club and the owner said, yeah, it's on the house, smoke the shisha, you have as much to drink. I mean, I don't want to take advantage too much. I smoked the shisha and had one or two drinks with him because he said, yeah, I'm promoting the country and, it's good for me overall. So he wanted to help. So these are the kind of contexts that then you can develop once you are set up with a social circle and you're actually providing value locally. And it doesn't have to be what I'm doing because that takes a long time to set up and to build up. And it wasn't my original plan for having it. And in particular, Moldova is just the way things played out. But if you are like my other client, moved to Kyiv, that you are building local businesses and providing employment, spending money, and building up things that are of value for the local community, then people will want to have you in their social circle, and then you get access to so many other things, and allows you to have even more business opportunities and get a lot more information. You can troubleshoot a lot of problems and get things solved so much easier. And of course, if you're looking for relationships, maybe cool guys to hang out with, or hang out with the type of women you want to date, then it is it's a lot easier. I think at the higher levels, especially on the dating side, that a lot of it is kind of kept at this point, and you need to cross a lot of obstacles in a lot of this region in general. It's not like I said, showing up. So in terms of, just to refer back a little bit to last week's live stream, if you haven't seen it and you're wondering about where to go in the region, it's a really good one. I went into what the difference between going to New York, Baltics, so Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, going to Poland, going to Moldova, coming here to Ukraine, going to Kazakhstan. I think I referred a little bit also to Bulgaria and Romania. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them down below, and I will come to them afterwards. But the too long didn't read version, that was a two TLDR version, is Ukraine. You have kind of higher risk, obviously, because of this war. Don't need to harp on about that too much, but you do have asymmetric opportunity, because then the upside is potentially even higher, especially if you position yourself now before this war ends, so that you get first mover advantage for afterwards. If you go to Poland and the New York Baltics, then these are countries that are already in the European Union. I used to play up that they're also NATO. I don't think that really, at this point, is that significant, unfortunately, but they are more structured. They still face some geopolitical risks from Russia. I think this is actually declining a bit now. We'll see how things play out in the next 3 to 6 months. But they are more structured, they're more developed, they're definitely more competitive, especially if you show up as a weekend warrior. I mean, here in Ukraine, there just aren't international tourists that much, as you can imagine. There's a little bit of the war tourism. Now, I read an article about it, but I think it's pretty minor. Even that, it's not significant. So it's a little bit different here. But if you go to Poland, it's so hyped up. There's so much tourism. It's not easy mode whatsoever, and I think that makes it problematic for the kind of guy who goes with a tourist mindset in 2026 who's been more, or you're a digital drifter, yeah, you're going to struggle because, as I was saying, things are more or less gate kept. One particular complaint about the New York Baltics came up to that they were saying that women are suspicious of your intentions. Yeah, because it's not like they're okay. You're from the U.S. Like they've met lots of Americans before, then maybe there's lots of Americans who just showed up expecting a lot of great things to happen based on the fact that they were American. It's like, well, why are you here in Riga on a rainy, I'm just looking at the weather, a rainy February afternoon when you don't seem to have any reason to be in Latvia? It's very different if you go there. I mean, with me, for example, or you actually have a reason to be there. You've built up some sort of social circuit. You're providing value to the local community, and they already see that you know everybody. You're a friend of a friend. Your friend is someone who's cool. You're not building no mates, and it makes sense in that environment while you're there. And that is like night and day in this region. If you go to other regions where there's huge foreigner factor and you're just some single digital drifter, then maybe it can still work out. And occasionally it might work out also. Maybe if you went to, I don't know, a very small Polish town, maybe in 2026. Like sometimes the small towns, it's even less hospitable in that sense if you're just randomly there. I went to Daugavpils, for example, which is the second city of Latvia. I think it was harder there. I met all these Dutch exchange students. I hung out with them. Anyway, well, I met one girl who was friendly enough to me, but that was a town that primarily speaks in Russian. I speak Russian, but yeah, they kind of had there was a famous Irish book called The Valley of the Squinting Windows. It was that kind of mentality, I think, in the Daugavpils. They weren't particularly open, and I found people from Riga a lot cooler personally. But anyways, that was just my own personal experience. So yeah, maybe it might work out in the smaller towns or somewhere where they're interested in meeting the random tourists, but often, sometimes they're even not in those places. Moldova, you're going to have more or less a pretty much hidden gem. I mean, one of my friends wrote back when I sent the last video, that it's still a hidden gem to a certain extent, and it is. Looking at the tourism numbers, or not really tourism, but the passenger numbers for Chișinău Airport, so that it's nearly entirely Moldovans and Ukrainians using the airport still. So there are very few foreigners even traveling to Moldova. I mean, because some people could also obviously travel over land, but I don't think that's going to be make a massive difference. I think most foreigners are going to fly in if they're going to come to Moldova. And again, they were just a small percentage of the people using the airport. So you have somewhere that's a little bit more emerging frontier. It's on the pathway to the European Union. It's not, doesn't have a war like in Ukraine. It's basically, I like to say Ukraine went out of war to a certain extent. It's not as developed. Like you don't have the same level of infrastructure like you're going to see in Poland and increasingly in countries like Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia. And if you love big shopping malls, been in the city center, because one of my clients complained that, yeah, Chișinău doesn't have a nice shopping center in the middle. It doesn't have a mall in the middle of the city. Yeah, but there are malls on the outskirts that are nice. But if that's important to you, then you would take a hit going to a place like Chișinău. But if that's not a big deal to you, I think it has a lot of upside, especially if you go during the summer. And yeah, I'm looking forward. I think the nightlife and the social life in general and the weather is summertime is pretty badass in Moldova. So, and then Kazakhstan was the other one that I dealt with. And there you have a little bit more of a foreign factor, I think, still, because it has less Western exposure. Just because of where it's located, it's hard to get to Kazakhstan. It's normally a red-eye flight to get there, and it's maybe because of Borat, not film, people just don't associate nice things with it. I think the big tourist attraction regions go to Uzbekistan if you're doing kind of looking for the architecture and stuff, but yeah, also an interesting spot. Anyways, go watch the last live stream if you want to have more detail on each of those locations. So I think if we look at dividing a system, you're going to have to look at kind of, I guess, the jurisdictional strategy first of all, like where you're going to base yourself, where you can spend time. Doesn't mean you have to like suddenly decide I'm going to move to Warsaw and you pack all your stuff and you arrive. You could also set yourself up maybe one place as a base and then spend time in a few other cities. Could be in the same region. It could even be international, global, in the sense that, well, the weather in a lot of Europe during the winter is cold. If you don't like the cold, and especially the darkness, because having spent a winter in most of the winter in Tallinn, in Estonia. There wasn't much sunlight. I spent previous winter, most of it in Minsk and Belarus back in, I think it was like 2018. And yeah, it's a little bit oppressive. Like you want to see a bit of sunshine, then maybe you want to have, part of the year, maybe you want to be like a migratory bird and go to Brazil or go to Colombia or go somewhere else, maybe Southeast Asia, the Philippines, and when it's cold in Europe, but you want to first figure out, okay, which jurisdiction where I'm going to base myself. That's obviously important also for things like getting visas, taxes maybe might also play into it. You want to consult an international tax consultant about that so you don't mess something up in terms of where you stay and end up with a big tax bill from maybe from a new country. Make sure it has a double taxation treaty with your home country, for example. And it's not necessarily that you have to base yourself in one city all the time. Of course, if you find one city and you love it all year round, then maybe that would be kind of like, I guess, the El Dorado of a place to find. So you could have this more portfolio approach, or you could commit to one city. You probably in the beginning want to explore a few places and use one place as a base. Now, when you're there, you want to focus on building up social circle. So you want to figure out where you can provide value, what you enjoy doing, what is going to be the events that you have a genuine interest in, where you're going to meet people with similar interests, and you invest time in the beginning in going to those kind of places, and then obviously making contacts and building up a bit of a social circle. It doesn't have to be only local people; it can also be foreigners, because sometimes with foreigners, you're gonna have the shared experience of actually having gone to this country. So could be even networking with other foreigners. I see there are like a lot of uh, business. Like I saw recently, it was kind of funny. It was like a business meetup for foreigners in I think it was in Kyiv. And then when I looked at the photos, it was mainly foreign businessmen. And then they all seemed to be Ukrainian business women, I guess, who were at it. So I guess that's what they were doing as a way to create socialism. But I'm sure they were meeting lots of people. There were also probably some Ukrainian guys. I'm not sure if it was really actually pitched as a foreign business meetup. I think it was just put in English and said business meeting meetup. So meetups, I think most people were like probably over 30, maybe most of the guys seem to be over 40 and most of the women seem to be over 30. But anyways, they seem to be having a lot of fun. I'm sure it wasn't just purely business. I'm sure they're also building this social connections and repeated presence, going back to the same place that obviously is a good fit for you. And that's something I've always talked about to clients. Like you have to figure out where you fit in. It might be similar to where you fit in back home. It might be different. I remember one client, he was into martial arts. His only complaint is there weren't so many girls doing it, but fine. But he made a lot of male friends then when he would go to the new country because, he was really passionate about it. He was very good at it. So then, people who have the same shared interests, it's easier to bond over that. And then, even when I go to my gym, I meet lots of guys as well. I think when you go into the gym for about the third month, normally when we're into month 3, then people start to say hello to you. At least that's my experience. And then certain, if you're passionate about fitness, for example, which is not really what for me is my number one passion, but for guys who are into that, then of course you can meet a lot of people of similar uh, background and interests, and then you can start to meet their friends and go socialize afterwards. Because sometimes I meet some of the guys from the gym. I even see them out in Odessa. I meet them socially, and then I meet their friends. So just repeat of presence and going out and socialize. I remember I had one client once. It was way back in the day, so I'm not even sure. Maybe I was only talking about language learning mainly at the time. I can't even remember I was doing this particular project. And it must have been when I just started and we had a consulting call. And he said he was living in Lviv. He found it hard to socialize. I said, "What are you doing every day?" "Well, I'm going to the supermarket. I'm eating at home." I was like, "You don't, you hardly leave your house and go to any social situation. Why don't you go get a tea, sit with your laptop for at least 2 hours of it, and then after a while start to talk to the staff because you go back there pretty regularly." He was German, if I remember, and start to talk to a pick a cafe where people probably are doing something similar to, or it's more likely. You could also go to a co-working space if you're doing some sort of online business. I don't particularly like them myself. I'd rather go and sit in a hipster cafe and hang out there and drink good coffee and just talk to the staff or the regulars. That's kind of what I do, and I meet a lot of people through that. So repeat presence and being social. You also want to position yourself a bit in terms of status and who you are, not that you're just some sort of blow-in who's coming for a week. The kind of tourist, I'm here for a week. Maybe for some people who are like the maybe foreigner groupies, that works, but that's declining in this region because there's just so many of them, right? And it's not a novelty to meet someone from America or someone from Ireland. And I'm sure they've met enough drunk Irish louts in their time to probably maybe even lived in Ireland. So the novelty of that maybe isn't you're going to be so special anymore. So you want to be clear about how you position yourself. What's the basically how you probably network when you're doing things back home. And yeah, the world is becoming, I think, a little bit more winner takes all. I don't think it's not like there's only the winner taking all, but I think this kind of mid tier in a lot of ways, being the average Joe, being in this kind of 4 to 6 range where most people are. I think it's getting squeezed in a lot of ways, not just economically. I just think in terms of lifestyle, romantic relationships, that you need to be positioning yourself better to be higher and higher. So one of the simple things that a lot of my clients need help with is with their social media. So their Instagram, it's like definitely a dating CV nowadays, in my opinion. I have some clients that just don't want to be on social media, and then we have to set up something in Telegram so they can still have a Telegram group as an alternative. But even for just meeting other guys that you want to network with for business or for just personal reasons that you get on, even if you don't have a business interests together, then having a social media that's at least not a disaster is already a start. But preferably something that's going to position you more as higher statuses. Always something that you shouldn't slip up on, I think, in general. So these are things that if I look at my own journey in this region, I came with that more tourist mindset in the beginning. I went to lots of cities, I traveled around, went every single country in Europe eventually, all 50 of them. And I was coming to Ukraine quite regularly, but trying to get, because I was coming for 2 or 3 weeks every time, maybe once, and probably at winter, over the winter coming for a week as well. I was only going, I was trying to see new cities all the time. I was coming to Odessa maybe for 3 or 4 days in the summer. And yeah, there were a lot of kind of cool adventures I had. I did make some friends, but they were normally other tourists. They didn't, in one case, the guy actually married a girl from Odessa. So I guess we did. Uh, Again, it's the luck part. It was kind of serendipity. The guys were French. They were from Brittany. One of them, yeah, he has, I think, 2 kids, maybe even 3 kids at this stage, with a girl that he met on that trip. And it was like maybe at this point, well over maybe it's 15 years ago. Is it almost at this point? Yeah, I think it was 2000. Maybe it was the first trip in 2009 here. So that would make it, yeah, crazy. It can't have been that trip, the first one. Yeah. But anyways, it's probably about 15 years ago. And I'm still in touch with them. But in general, I just spent a lot of time coming here and having to start from scratch every time. New place. Obviously, I had to figure out where to go. I wouldn't know anyone. I'd be building nomads. I'm only staying here for a few days. I did, because I like languages a lot, invest in learning the language. It took a long time. At first, I was using Russian. Now, with the changes here, I mainly speak in Ukrainian, or I speak in Romanian a bit more when I go to Moldova. So that allows me to step out of a tourist box a lot, gives me a lot of credibility, because, yeah, it would be very odd if a tourist came and already spoke Ukrainian. They just assume that I already have a purpose in being here. And it was basically luck. I've told it several times on my channel. Is like I missed a train to go to Munich from Brussels, and I was going to go skiing with my family, my dad and my sister, somewhere in northern Italy, and I needed to get to Munich, and I missed the bloody train. And then I could get another train, but I could only go to Frankfurt that night. And then I remember I had a Russian friend in Frankfurt, Mikhail, and yeah, I called him, and then he said, "Cool, I have the spare apartment there. Actually, I got a key for you. Can crash there, no problem." And then we'll go out with my other friend. He's from Odessa, so we went out. I chatted to him. He said, "Oh, you need to contact this guy. He's German. He organizes a German meetup in Odessa when you come back." So then I called this guy, Arthur. He's been in lots of my videos. I remember I then went out, also met Mikhail, who's in lots of my videos. And then suddenly I realized, yeah, I had actually a social circle, because it was a mixture of guys who were foreign and guys and girls who were foreign, and also local, an interest in, the interest there was German at the time. But from that, then I met lots of other friends, and I started to come to Odessa more and more because, like, yeah, there's so many synergies. Because now we have a social circle. When I have problems, I can just troubleshoot. I meet friends of friends. I'm not building nomads. I don't have to explain all the time who I am. I meet higher level people in general because they were running businesses also first online, and then also a little bit they had their own foundation here, so they were playing a role in the city. And then I was also able to tap into that and also then meet lots of other people and also provide back some value also with my channel at a certain point. So that is kind of what I wanted to communicate to you guys, that if you're coming here and you think it's still, I wrote in my notes 2016 as opposed to 1996. I guess there's a few crazy people who still think it's like 30 years ago. But I think even compared to 2016, I think there was still some foreigner factor, but just that exists less and less, and trying to chase that. Like I see a lot of influencers online doing in this kind of passport bro space, which I don't associate with, but we'll say the passport bro kind of mentality, and they're basically looking for this. Yeah, they're going to more and more obscure places, hoping that they have this foreigner factor. I think it's kind of a losing game in that sense, and you need to focus on having an actual system, an approach to things, a plan when you show up that's going to allow you to access those social circles and position yourself in the right ecosystems, that you don't end up building nomads. You're not relying on apps, dating apps to meet women if you're coming here, because that's so low value. I think anything that has dating written on it, here's a little tip for you: very few women with options are going to go anywhere that has any pretext of being about dating. So they're not going to go to a speed dating event in real life. They're not going to go to go on a dating app. Obviously, they're not going to, or at least they won't be there that often. If they are there, maybe they do when they're bored or something. I don't want to really talk about the marriage agencies anymore. They're definitely not going en masse to those. And they might have been in 1996. I'm sure the situation was very different. So, yeah, anything that has singles events, really, anything that is defined or advertised as being about dating, then they will not go there. That's just in general the way it works. Of course, people also go to bars and clubs to meet people. Women go there also to meet men, but it's not what's written on the door. Hey, this is a singles event in general. So that's why they can have plausible deniability about whether they're there. It can also be why a lot of girls get made up and sit in nice cafes because they also want to be approached by men, for example, and they would sit there reading a book all the time. That's a little tip for you that I've observed quite often in Ukraine. They'll sit there reading a book and a cup of tea for 2 hours. I wonder if they're really there to read the book that they could have read at home, or they're hoping, when they're all nicely made up, that that some guys approach them and chat to them. So you don't want to be choosing the wrong city. That's why I think these live streams have been and my content in general is very useful for you in not spending 3 months in a place that's definitely not going to be a good fit for you. You can obviously you won't get that time back. You have big opportunity cost and no cultural calibration. Going somewhere because you believe, like, Poland is like overhyped. It's like, the way that's described often on this kind of more MAGA orientated passport pro. Well, passport pros don't even really go there anymore, but at least 2 or 3 years ago, that kind of view they had, that they can just show up. Everybody is like super like right wing, for example, and racist and stuff. And some people go there thinking that's the way it's going to be, and they don't realize that Warsaw, like 70% voted for the other candidate, not for Mr. Narowski in Warsaw itself. And also, he's definitely not pro-Russian. So if you're one of these pro-Russian people who go to Warsaw thinking that it's going to be a place that you're probably going to fit in, probably not so much, I would say. So understanding this cultural nuance, and obviously if you can learn the language, even better. So my clients have described it as a game changer. And yeah, just don't treat this as kind of a cheap West, because it is part of the West. That's another thing, describing Poland as you're going to Eastern Europe. I mean, come on, this is 2026. The Cold War ended 35 years ago with the collapse of the Soviet Union. And if you think that Poland, putting it this way, they were not celebrating Victory Day in the same way it is celebrated in Moscow, although it wasn't celebrated too euphorically in Moscow either this year. It's very, very different. And yeah, just having this mentality, I think it's just a little bit stuck in time. It's like searching this place where it's cheap and easy, and that doesn't cut it in 2026. On the flip side, if you are a guy who's got high value and you're willing to put in the effort, then all these barriers to entry are actually going to be good things because, as I've said in the last few live streams, every Tom, Dick, and Harry cannot show up here and date a supermodel or have some immediate kind of fame just by being a foreigner. That you actually have to be able to put in some sort of effort and create a social circle and provide some sort of value in order to do that. So I think all in all, that's what I wanted to communicate to you guys that have been leaving comments where you're a bit disappointed in some of the places. I feel this is the problem. You don't have much of a plan in a sense. It's kind of down to luck. You just hope you show up. I don't know, you go to a bar, you buy a beer, and yeah, things are going to work out. And I guess if you do it enough times, maybe it will eventually work out. I mean, that was kind of what I was doing back in the day when I was traveling a lot, is that because since I didn't have much of a plan other than to show up, and I did learn a lot of the languages, at least a little bit, and I'm reasoning streetwise even back then. Yeah, compared to when I actually had created a social circle, it's like night and day basically in terms of the experience. And yeah, if you want to go to the next level, this is kind of almost a sine qua non, I would say, in 2026. There are a few exceptions. I do occasionally see it work out for guys who don't have a plan. But in terms of accessing, like, kind of the famed beauty of the women in this region, for example, most of it is kind of gatekeeped, as I said, or network gated in 2026, in the sense that just being a random guy who walks up to them, you know, it might work out, but it's so much lower as a probability than it would have been. I can tell you for sure, 15, 20 years ago, when I first started to come, than it is now, that you need to have a plan in place about how you're going to come across us when you do meet people and how you're going to meet them in general. So you don't need to, there's another objection sometimes, oh, I don't want to go out clubbing, I don't want to drink lots of alcohol. Number one, you don't need to drink alcohol if you go out. I think in this region, I don't think people care if you say you don't drink alcohol in 2026. I don't think it was really ever that much a problem. Probably in the last 5 years when I've had clients, I've had lots of clients who don't drink alcohol. If you don't like to socialize, that is a problem. It's something you need to work on. Meeting people in real life. That's why I highlight this idea of using apps when you're traveling, especially for the dating side, is a really poor strategy in 2026. Could it work out? Maybe, but it's really more like you're probably going to get scammed, or at least you're going to waste a lot of time. Or when I say scammed, I think most scams are just going to be a meal plan scam where some girl's going to bring you to a restaurant, just get a free meal. And that's probably, and I know of Ukrainian girls who've told me in person that that's what they do. Sometimes on the weekend, they just look for businessmen, guys who look like they have a bit of cash, and they just want to go out for dinner. They have no interest in the guy at all. They just know, well, I get free dinner at nice restaurants. So, yeah, that kind of experience is probably what you want to avoid, because then you're going to invest your time, never mind the money, but really your time, emotions into the wrong people. Is there anything else I want to say before you get to your questions and comments? Yeah, and I think, as I've alluded to, if you're going to go to a place like Riga or apparently to Tallinn, then this is definitely something you need to be aware of, because those are the cities that I see the most complaints about. Interestingly, the commentator who talked about Vilnius being the best and the easiest, like, I think it's the opposite, because the way they zone Vilnius means every Tom, Dick, and Harry can find all the places. And as a result, it's kind of a little bit of a tourist vibe there. And I think it sucks a bit, to be frank, from that point of view, with the nightlife. I think it kind of ruins it. And yeah, that's why I emphasize that the fact that you have this gatekeeping and this kind of face control, where some of the clubs, as I described in Riga, they have no tourist policy. It's fine to be a foreigner, but if they think you're a tourist, they will not let you in. Maybe if you're a pretty girl, it doesn't apply. But if you're a guy, and it was the same in Kaunas as well in Lithuania, if you look like a tourist, if you come up as a tourist, they don't want you in the establishment. They have right to refuse you. And the upside is that if you're a foreigner and you go there, well, then you don't have other foreigners there. So complaining about the changes that I see with these guys I refer to as the veterans, yeah, it's kind of like being a neo-Luddite. If you know from your history what a Luddite was. They're the people who, when the Industrial Revolution happened, they started to smash up the machinery because they saw it as a competitor to their to whatever they were doing manually by hand. So they started to smash up the machines, like having that kind of attitude that, yeah, I hate, complaining about social media, complaining about that the girls get to travel, they're visa free somewhere else. It's not going to change the reality around you. So I often meet guys talk about 20 years ago, and it's like, come on. I mean, yeah, it's fine to make a comment about it, but if you're going to live in this world and complain and be bitter about it and not move with the times, you're just going to be left behind with a strategy that doesn't work anymore. So if you would like to dive deeper on this and actually have a bespoke strategy for coming here, then you can invest in a consulting call down below. I have a link to that. Obviously, if you want my in-person mentoring, then you'll have my New York experience, the in-person immersion. Again, if you come late to this, if you want to come to Ukraine, which is a special schedule and price schedule as well, until May 17th, you need to apply before next Sunday to be grandfathered in and considered for summer 2026. If you apply after that, you won't be grandfathered in. So definitely go and apply immediately down below. And yeah, I'm going to go and take a look at your comments and questions. Okay, I see someone saying they're in Warsaw and they can attest to what I'm saying. Right. Let me go back up to the top. I have my Moldova polo shirt on today. That's simply because for some reason I put it on the thumbnail for this live stream and I said, oh, I better wear it. Otherwise I'm gonna have to change the thumbnail afterwards. But yeah, soon, very soon I will be going back to Chișinău, Moldova. Joshua says, Buongiorno, Conor. Buonasera. From here in Odessa. John says, Conor, how do you travel between cities like Odessa and the city in Moldova? Is a train or plane? Okay. I mean, you cannot fly in Ukraine unless you're in one of the fighter jets. So obviously, I'm not flying. If you're asking me how I'm getting from Odessa somewhere else, at the moment, I'm not in the Ukrainian Air Force and using it for a little bit of a personal jolly somewhere. But yeah, to go to between Chișinău and Odessa, best way is to take the bus. Don't think they have a train at the moment. Between the cities, there was in the past. But anyways, from Chișinău Airport, it takes between 4 and 4.5 hours to get to Odessa, the city. There are buses, like there are lots, there's probably 30 a day. So basically, they'll be running even if you show up at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a bus that goes. You got to walk down to the road to get the bus. Normally, the ones that go to Odessa, they might be a little bit closer to terminal, but it's not that far away. It takes. So if you are talking about arriving in Moldova, then you can fly into Chișinău Airport. It's a big international airport. So maybe you can. I take trains. Where do I take trains nowadays? I don't take them so much in Ukraine because they're not as frequent. I think the last train I took it in the west of Ukraine. I don't like the idea of taking the train all the way from Warsaw to Kyiv. It's just too long for me. I don't like sleeping on trains. I prefer to stop in Lviv. If I go from Warsaw back to Ukraine, I go to Lviv by bus. I sleep overnight in Lviv, and I can travel onwards. If I'm going to Odessa, it's like going to be about, it's going to be a whole day's travel basically afterwards. But I prefer to do that than taking a night train. And other places, there are lots of, well, now with this price hike in the petrol price, the jet fuel prices, maybe I see that a lot of airlines are canceling their flights this summer, but in general in Europe, there's lots of low cost flights. You can go all over Europe pretty easily compared to 10 years, 20 years ago when Ryanair first started and EasyJet and all those Wizz Air, those kind of low cost airlines. So lots of flights between them. So maybe be a bit more precise about your question, John. Joshua, East Europe turns oil and gas into ammonia and then food fertilizer that grows some the world's food. Ammonia prices will double and triple. Supposed to be used. Yeah, I mean that's the thing here in Ukraine with the fertilizers that are produced for sure. And if the price goes up, then they can make a lot more money. Makes sense to me. Matt says best places to meet girls in Chișinău. Also, are the girls they're interested in? Like, I wonder. Like when people ask me these kind of questions, I'm not sure if you've been on before, Matt. Would you say, are the girls interested in marriage? That's an odd question to ask. Have you ever been to this region? Most girls are interested in marrying a guy if they're in a long-term relationship. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd question. I mean, what are you really asking? Are they going to be interested in marrying you, for example? That's yeah. Then you need to describe yourself a bit more. Best places to meet girls in Chișinău. Well, if you want to know where my favorite cafes, restaurants, clubs, bars, and shisha lounges are, then you can go invest in my guide down below. I have them also for Warsaw, for the New York Baltics, so Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and for classic Kazakhstan, as I call it, down below. And obviously, we have the one for Ukraine as well. So that will tell you exactly where my favorite places are. And yeah, I mean, it's just like, are you a weekend warrior coming for a trip? Going to be a little bit difficult in Chisinau, I think. Yeah, it's like that video I did 2 years ago where Adrian, my friend, was saying, yeah, if you're familiar face, all cool. If you're just kind of a tourist, people are a little bit like, yeah, why invest in getting to know this person? They've all traveled. Even if not that many tourists go to Moldova, they've all traveled. Moldovans travel a lot. So meeting an Irish lad, I mean, half of them have probably spent time in Ireland and realized not every Irish lad is the best, has the best character, right? Even if I like my uh, brethren in general, I think we have great wit in Ireland. You're an American with a decent job, but is your job remote? Are you planning to move to Moldova, or are you just coming as a wife hunter, kind of on a 1 week trip to Moldova, thinking that you're going to find a bride? That's yeah. I mean, I think someone here commented that that's so 2016 with that mentality, and that it's really not the done thing nowadays. But maybe you can tell a bit more about yourself, like your age, if you're looking to meet someone who's 25 and looks like a catwalk model, or you're looking for an average look, 40-year-old who already has kids with someone else. I mean, it really depends. Um, Josh, how much is gas and diesel? Not sure. I haven't checked. I don't own a car here, so I don't really think about it so much. But we have a bit of inflation. But I think that's even since early winter, we've had a bit of inflation. I would say in the supermarket, 15% maybe. If I look at my flat white, how much my flat white gone up? Because I'm thinking in the supermarket more in hryvnia, the local currency. But if I think in euros, yeah, it's gone up maybe 10% in the last 6 months. But it's that's about. It's probably higher than that, to be frank. But that's how much my flat white has moved in terms of price. Matt says if he has passive income, okay, so you're saying you got passive income, $4,000 a month without working. Okay, so it's passive income. Would I live like a king in Chișinău, an average guy? I think you live very well. A king, it depends. Like probably where are you living at the moment? What is your lifestyle like there? Are you someone who lives a very flamboyant lifestyle? And I think the cost, if I look at my flat white index, it's about €3.30 where I have my flat white in Chișinău. And we'll say most equivalent city in Western, I'm probably going to pay €5. We'll say it could be 4.50, €5. So there you see, it's probably about 35% less expensive. I think that's a good kind of ballpark. So it would be like having 6K a month probably in the US. I mean, if you want to live it up as a baller in Manhattan, probably not going to be, yeah, that kind of lifestyle, but solid. Um, I wouldn't say king. Wouldn't say king if you're living in Chișinău, but living a good lifestyle, yeah, upper middle class maybe. Later grader says all the nines and tens in Paris and New York. No, they are not. But a lot of them go there to model. That's for sure. Available samples are pretty much plus or minus in any Eastern European city and a few Western ones. Co-op model doesn't mean go. By the way, Sweden has a lot of beautiful women, so we'll say it's Scandinavia. I mean Nordics. We can't really call Western Europe. Kegmal doesn't mean golden ratios. Curitiba, Moscow, New York City, Warsaw. The tippy top is super rare everywhere. Yeah, well, that's just a percentage if you look at it on the bell curve. It's in that video that I referenced down below. Go look at it if you want to know more. Bulk of single 677. Okay. He thinks the model agencies have poached a lot of talent and made everything sophisticated. Yeah, definitely. And I think also like the Emirates, in spite of what's happened the last few months, that's also attracted a lot of good-looking women with maybe questionable morals to leave countries like Russia and Ukraine, Belarus, Poland over the years, who are just basically interested in bling bling and money. And they go there. I saw actually that this month Saudi Arabia has made it visa-free for Russians. So you can guess what's going to happen. They've got another safety valve for the collapsing Russian economy and the fact that there won't be as much money floating around there for these girls to try and get their hands on through men. They'll be just, they'll be giving it up to the Saudis in exchange for a little bit of, whatever. I don't know what currency they have in Saudi Arabia. I haven't been there. I was invited. I once had a, can we call it a relationship? Probably not. With with a girl who's Saudi of all the nationalities. And she invited me, but I didn't go. Yeah, probably a mistake because now but this was a good few years ago. So now it's opened up to tourism a lot more. At the time, it wasn't. I was like, yeah, I'm not really so committed to this relationship, inverted commas, that I want to go to Saudi Arabia. But anyways, she was a sweet girl. So what does Gold King's man says? Peak is never reached when one never gives up. Yeah. There, so though I think the higher percentage is, you seem very invested in all these numbers, later greater. And are you just traveling around? Maybe tell a little bit more about yourself. Also status, single one's left. It would be good to give more backgrounds. Josh is the man that grew up without the internet, can talk to women and be social. The younger ones can't. Is that true? Yeah, I think that my observations are that younger guys seemed a lot more reserved in general than I remember my generation being. And they tend to drink less alcohol a little bit. It can be good in other ways, obviously. So, yeah, I think they are a little less sociable because they've grown up with screens. Whilst back in my day, yeah, you had to be a lot more social. Argentina is smarter. Later grades, okay. One of Gold King's sponsor, one of his fitness trainers, was from Latvia, a huge guy, maybe 7 foot tall. Okay. Isn't Moldova depopulated? I mean, is that really? I mean, that seems a little sensationalist. Yes, the population's dropped like it has in a lot of the region. I mean, I think that's going to be reversed anyways, because as the economy improves and it joins the European Union, people will move back to Moldova. How much has brought out? Okay. Smaller cities, low turnover, Denmark, local social capacity. Okay. So you don't like Daugavpils sounds like a beer. Yeah, I did 2 live streams from there, but I didn't invest in making a video, even though I filmed a lot, because I was just like, it was too small. And yeah, it was just too provincial for me. I was very underwhelmed by Daugavpils. Thoughts on Kaunas, too small. Well, I had one great place to go out that has a no tourist policy, so I had to speak in Lithuanian at the door. So I would say there's more to do in Kaunas than there is in Daugavpils, but at the same time, yeah, Vilnius is a bit more interesting as a city. Seoul Everand says, Conor, from lonely in Ireland to lonely in Eastern Europe, yeah, real success. I don't know what the hell. Conor can take his system to Russia. Let's see how it's. I don't know. Sounds a little bit weird. When you see a name like Soul of Iran with the current geopolitical situation, yeah, I was, I left Ireland when I was basically 21. So I didn't move from Ireland to this region. It's also not Eastern Europe anymore. You probably want a little bit of a software update in that. We're talking about New Europe here. So we're not talking about going to Russia. I don't advise people, and I don't help people with going to Russia, at least not since with this war since 2022, this phase of the war. And yeah, I was actually living, if you want to know more about my background, I was working as a lawyer for many years in Brussels, in Munich, briefly. And then I started to spend more and more time out in this region. So first I went to Romania, actually, but I probably spent 6 months in Romania. And I split my time between Western Europe and then Central Europe a lot. And then I started to come more and more to Ukraine. And yeah, there was a period in 2018, 2019. If you want to know more about the background to my channel, I was spending a lot of time in Belarus. It was basically about partying and dating in Belarus and in Ukraine. We did take one trip to St. Petersburg. That was for the White Nights in 2019. And then with the COVID pandemic, I was entirely in Ukraine for all of it. I didn't leave, not even for one day, until the second day of the invasion. So then we were talking more about relocation, because that was the main topic guys had. Well, guys wanted to leave with the lockdowns. They wanted to come here. So yeah, dating was one factor, but they were also buying property, getting visas, and actually looking for a place with better life. So I guess the channel evolved into a different phase then. And obviously it's a bit different now. Normally I help my clients with the alternatives, but overall I've rebranded as New Europe because I also help guys with coming here to Ukraine. And I had a lot of success in Russia. Hate to disappoint you. At the time, I mean, how many times I go to Russia? I was with my German girlfriend the first time I went to St. Petersburg and to Kaliningrad. Then I actually went to Moscow, but I was to meet a girl there who was not local. She was actually a foreigner. I won't say her nationality because it caused a lot of controversy in the past. Might also give away who she is in some shape or form. So I just, gentleman never brags in that sense. And yeah, then the third time I went to the Russian Federation was in the summer of 2019. And we had a good trip. Yeah, there was no issue with meeting attractive women. Would I say it was as productive from the dating point of view as Minsk during the golden age of Minsk? No, I think Minsk was a bit better from that point of view. But yeah, St. Petersburg was fun. Not that I will be returning for the foreseeable future. Jeffy says, "Hey Connor, Jeff from New Jersey. Real value your content. Thanks, man. Visiting Riga in June with my kids. Yes, I think you were on the last live stream looking to relocate for travel reasons, but also see if it's worth arbitraging cost of living. He's living retired outside of New York City. It's not cheap. Retired. He's in his 60s, looking to really enjoy, but not bizarre lifestyle. We'll look into a 15-minute call. Keep it going. Cool. We'll chat then in greater detail. And yes, I'm the artist formerly known as the Czar, I guess. What's bizarre lifestyle? Czar lifestyle. Oh, okay. Now I see. Any experience dating in Kaunas? Ozzy asked me. Well, I went twice to Kaunas, and I had that one place that I went out. I actually went there on a recce mission, a reconnaissance mission, first of all, and then I actually went with my client the second time. Yeah. He definitely had a good night out. He didn't want to go back to Kaunas. He loved Lithuania, and he got on the best in the region with women from Lithuania. But he was definitely all in on Vilnius afterwards in terms of he just preferred it there than Kaunas. Yeah, that was his experience. But we had a good night out. I mean, I don't think is it bad in Kaunas? I wasn't there long enough to give it a definitive rating. I think that Riga is still number one in the region. I would put Riga number one, Tallinn number two, Vilnius number three, Kaunas number four, and then it's between Narva and Daugavpils for number five because they're the other place. I didn't go back to Tartu, but I would put Tartu above both Daugavpils and Narva for sure. Narva is too small, and you didn't really live anywhere. It was hard. Yeah, it was hard to see how to socialize there. Again, I only went to Narva for a few days. Well, Daugavpils actually stayed a few weekends. Someone else saying PL is their name. He's in Warsaw right now. You can test what you're saying. You still need to show up and be the best version. Of course, yeah, definitely. Like it's a highly competitive environment going to a city like Warsaw. Has been 2 and 3 million people, and yeah, it's emerging. Basically, it's catching up. They will overtake the United Kingdom. We'll see what happens politically there. Well, if I would say you might as well the last person in the UK if reform win, the guys who created half of this mess in the first place with the Brexit disaster economically, yeah, if they get into power, I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel for the UK. The UK will only recover when it's rejoined the European Union, basically, and they'll probably have to rejoin without their 4 billion rebate that Margaret Thatcher negotiated for them, but that will be the situation. Or it will break up, and maybe England will stay outside. And, yeah, and Scotland and will be independent. Let's see in the next 10 years. Yeah, but Poland will overtake them economically. I think it's almost a given at this point. It seems so chaotic in the United Kingdom, and yeah, until they have some significant political change for the better, then yeah, it's hard to know how they're going to sort themselves out. And the idea of Brexit is they were suddenly going to be allied with the US, but with Donald Trump throwing out tariffs like it's confetti, I don't think they want to be in that sphere. It's too far away. They do all the business with Europe. It's just nonsensical, the whole thing. Anyways, let's focus on the better parts of Europe to move to at the moment. Yeah, Poland. It's it's not super cheap. People are ambitious there. They move there. There are a lot of Ukraine. I think it's cool also because it's got the Ukrainian and Belarusian diasporas for me because I speak those languages: Ukrainian, Belarusian, and Russian. And also, yeah, just a lot of interesting Poles. I mean, that's it's kind of the center for everything, Warsaw. But it's not a place. It's not like when I went there, and it was even before 2016. Yeah, it's definitely really changed dramatically. So you can't show up as a. I saw the term on some other channels like loser back home. You can't show up like that and with no plan. I mean, maybe you'll be super lucky. I guess it works out for a certain percentage, but gotta really be lucky, like winning the lottery in 2026 and more so. What place is better right now, Riga or Chișinău? Oof. Well, it's going to be summer season next weekend, Mark. Opening in Chișinău. And do I think that's better? Depends what you're into because they're quite different as places. You got the seaside in Riga. It's a bit more sophisticated, I would say, although Chișinău is catching up. It's a bit bigger, Riga, and people are taller. So you got lots of leggy blondes, whilst Chișinău is going to be more brunettes, not as tall. Although I think people in this region are the younger, we'll say 18 to 25-year-olds, they're getting taller and taller here, definitely for sure, than the previous generation. So maybe in another 10 years, they'll be as tall as people from the Baltics. Because I notice it more and more. Even girls who are like 20 years old, more of them are taller than me. And I'm 178. So I would say I would love to go to both of them next weekend. So, but for different reasons. Because you're going to have the water in Riga. You're going to have, yeah, it's a bit more of a cosmopolitan city in the sense, a bit more better infrastructure. Whilst Chișinău is going to have the electronic music parties. I think they're cooler in Chișinău. And yeah, I mean, for me personally, I just have my social circle there, so it's already going to be cool. And yeah, if it's a weekend, probably Riga is better, I would think. Maybe, yeah. Again, it depends what you're looking for. Wayne says no trains in Ukraine now that they stop every air alarm takes longer than the bus. It is quicker from Bucharest to Kyiv by bus anyway. Yeah, that is another issue because Russia has started to target trains. Yeah, I mean, that country. The sooner that they are defeated, the better for everybody in Europe. Damien says, Rial is the Saudi currency. Thank you. I haven't been there, so never thought of that. But I see someone is a little bit informed than me. Saudi has the line, huge wall project, 15-minute city. But I think they abandoned that project, right? Goldman's King. Or at least it's been postponed. Lucas says, we are not rejoining the EU. Sorry to break it to you, but Lucas, you don't, well, that's an unusual British name. So Northern Ireland, almost certainly that part of the UK is going to rejoin the EU because it's likely to unite with the rest of Ireland in the next decade. So we'll see what's left of the UK after that. Northern Ireland goes, then will Scotland stay? Even the Welsh nationalists did very well in the elections recently. So the UK is just going to. Scotland wants to rejoin the EU even more than England. So yeah, that's another reason for having a referendum. One of the main arguments against Scottish independence when they had the referendum was that they would leave the European Union, but then the England basically voted them into leaving anyways afterwards, ironically. So yeah, I think a rump England might decide to just be there. I don't know what, sign some sort of new deal that's going to mean that they're like part of the European Economic Area, but not part of the EU. If you're making that kind of argument, then that's possible that they just rejoin the European Economic Area. And then what was the point of ever leaving? But it'd be a way of saying that they never rejoined because they won't get to vote, but they'll just have to accept the rules. Anyways, Kyiv versus Chișinău, Slater Greater. Maybe describe more about you tend to ask a lot of questions for comparisons between cities. Maybe describe yourself a lot more because I need to have a better avatar in my mind to really say which is better for you. Obviously, some of the considerations are that Kyiv is a bigger city. So, yeah, you're going to have that more big city vibe. You will have the war. Chișinău, you won't have the war. Like, how do you like to socialize? Are you motivated to come to Ukraine? For what reason? You want to come here and see it? You're a war tourist. You're, yeah, just describe. How is Jurmala, Jeffy? Yes, it's kind of a pretty nicely put together seaside resort. It has some of the old architecture there in the main street. I filmed it, and when did I put it in? I can't remember which videos I put it in at this point, and because I didn't go there with Karina for the property video, we went outside the other end, and then we filmed at the waterfront, and then one in the historic center, one building, so we did three. When I go back, maybe make another video where maybe we got to Jurmala and look at property there. That would actually be good in the next, whenever I'm back. And yeah, I didn't think the nightlife was amazing in Jurmala. It was a little bit quieter than I expected, but I know that's really not your concern, Jeffy. So yeah, it's pretty. There's a lot of nice properties there. It's only 45 minutes maybe from the center of Riga. Obviously a bit of traffic during the summer, so it's a pretty cool spot. Very close. Irishman, careful now, you know, is UK at the moment, obviously. The taller thing is a phenomenon worldwide. It has to do with quality of nutrition. Yeah, people are getting taller. So I'm 178. So maybe I'll wish I was 183 pretty soon if people keep getting taller. Lucas says Northern Ireland's part of the UK. Yeah, at the moment. So, but the chances of there being a referendum in Northern Ireland about joining the South, very likely in the next decade. And there's now, for maybe the last 2 years, discussion in the Republic of Ireland about what that would look like. You know, it wouldn't be an annexation, like it wouldn't be what happened in between West and East Germany, where basically West Germany just annexed East Germany. In effect, they just became part of West Germany. Probably have to redefine a lot of things in a united Ireland to accommodate people of British heritage, maybe give a little bit of, I don't know what they're going to do as a compromise to make it more acceptable to unionists in Northern Ireland that they live in United Ireland. I think before Brexit, the chances of Ireland uniting was very low in effect, because why bother going through all the hassle of changing it? I'm not so sure people in the South, when push came to shove, were actually going to be willing to pay to integrate Northern Ireland either. That's also going to be a big thing. I mean, it's the rest of the United Kingdom going to pay to get, you know, just hand it over because it's going to be economically backward compared to the South. It's already the poorest part of the United Kingdom. So there's a lot of things to be considered, but I think it will happen because of Brexit. And the UK probably is not going to rejoin the EU in the next 10 years. So maybe after that, I think it might rejoin. But there will be almost certainly a referendum before then. John says that he's hoping for United Ireland at long last. How do you travel from Odessa to Moldova? Yeah, take the bus. But there's buses going like I don't know, like all day. So it's not a problem. I mean, the longest you should have to wait is like an hour, I guess, for a bus to Moldova from Odessa. It's not far. There's so much demand because the airport is there in Chișinău for the city in effect with the war. So yeah. Yeah, I'm also in favor of United Ireland. Obviously, that would depend on what agreement they end up signing about what United Ireland would look like. So with that caveat, that reservation, I'd have to read it first. But probably I would vote in favor, yeah. Later grader says, young guys 7 prefer fit. For some reason my phone is buzzing. Let's see if there's any urgent message from anyone that I can see on my big screen here. Okay, no, not sure why. Maybe it's on Instagram, people writing. Later guy says he's a young guy, 7 range, prefer faces over tall. Yeah, maybe give it like young guy. How young? Are you like 18? Are you 30? I'm 47. I don't describe myself as old. Maybe you do. 7 range. Is that where you rate yourself for some reason? I mean, tell a bit more about your situation and what you're looking for. Because you ask a lot of questions about all the different places all the time, but it's kind of like you should probably think also more about the plan, I would advise. And yeah, maybe describe that. Are you connecting to social circles? Are you traveling? Because you asked so much about the different places. You prefer faces over tall women. I mean, does that mean you don't like tall women, or you do like tall women? It's not clear to me. Wayne, there are more than one bus an hour leaving Chișinău for Moldovan. Yeah, at least. Okay, while I wait for more questions to come in, let me just give you some regional updates. So Armenia, I've referred to Armenia a few times on these Sunday shows. It's now closer to starting its journey for EU membership. This will cause a huge potential conflict with the Russian Federation. And in fact, basically, Putin, using diplomatic language, threatened Armenia by saying that, oh, just so you remember, it was Ukraine's desire to join the European Union that started off this whole war, which is true, which is kind of the first time I remember actually finally agreeing with what I've produced as a hypotheses in many videos, even before the invasion in 2022. I made a video in Kharkiv in 2021. It's basically about Ukraine not wanting to be in Moscow's orbit, but wanting to join the EU so that they can be the next Poland, which this war, Russia's not going to win at this point. I mean, I think it's almost 100%. It's not, nothing's ever 100%. But if Igor Gerkin, the main Russian ultranationalist who was part of the invasions in 2014, says that even mobilization at this point, if Putin goes for it, he's already messed it up. It's too late. And he was saying a year ago that basically the chance of winning are pretty remote at this point. And basically it's a choice between a full Ukrainian victory, i.e. taking back all the territory and kicking Russia out completely, including Crimea, or some sort of half-baked armistice deal, freezing of the front lines, and the can be kicked down the road for 10 years, and then we'll see. Either Russia then collapses and Ukraine takes back the territory, or they start another war to try and take it back again. That's what he sees. So, yeah, that is the situation. But I'll talk about it more on the other channel with my live stream, the update from what happened over the weekend. But Armenia, they basically say for now that they're not going to apply for EU membership, but they're working towards that. And they have important elections coming up in June, so in about a month's time. So that will be interesting to see what happens there. Magyar is now officially Peter Magyar, the Prime Minister of Hungary, and already the economy in Hungary is rebounding, and the other political figures in New Europe who were supporting the Kremlin are now pretty much taciturn about it. Fico has even been pretty friendly with Zelensky. So that era of Hungary being Moscow's man in the European Union is over, and that ability to block or delay EU support for Ukraine is, for now, seems like it's been removed. So another huge defeat for the Kremlin and for J.D. Vance, who went out to campaign for Viktor Orban. Yeah, just as a quick point, like openly interfering in someone else's politics and other country's politics is never a good idea. I don't think it really ever works if you go there and openly campaign as a foreigner, like a vice president in this case, or if Trump had gone, or it's the same if Joe Biden had gone somewhere and said, I endorse this guy. Like, people normally don't like foreigners in a democracy. Foreigners coming in telling them how to vote. So it'd be a lot more effective to do it on the down low, to be frank, if you're going to interfere politically. But for some reason, he decided to do that, which I'm grateful for, because I want Ukraine to win this war. So he removed a major obstacle by Magyar winning the election with a supermajority. I mean, Magyar would have won the election anyways, regardless of J.D. Vance, but would he have won by as much? Not clear. Ukraine, I already spoke a little bit about what's going on, and I spoke about Odesa as about the nightlife, and that everything kicks off here on the last weekend of the month. Arcadia opens up, so Odesa is going to be lit for the summer. It's going to be pretty good to party here. And just to reemphasize, this could really be the last summer during the war, fingers crossed, I mean, I can't guarantee it, obviously. So if you want to come and experience Ukraine at this juncture in its history and not have the hordes of horny foreigners ruining everything down in Arcadia, this may be the last time to experience that. And yeah, hopefully by this time next year that we'll be celebrating it in post-war Ukraine. I said at the beginning of the year, I put it like 50-50. We have a temporary pause in fighting at a very minimum this year. If that doesn't happen, it'll be 80% for 2027. That was my estimation. So could still happen this year because we saw some overtures kind of shrouded in aggressive rhetoric from Putin, but basically starting to throw out the feelers about meeting Zelensky elsewhere, negotiating with Europe. It's kind of after the debacle of this May 9th parade, or almost lack of a parade. I watched it was so short. Yeah, he's in a bad place in Russia, which I'm obviously pretty happy about. Yeah, the only other thing was I watched a clip from Scott Galloway, and he was talking about young people need to drink more and dance more to facilitate relationships. Just the whole thing seems like the young generation was referred to earlier aren't social. They're not out as much and socializing people because they've grown up with screens. Also, they drink less alcohol, for better or worse. That has some positives, obviously, for health, the lack of substance abuse, but considering how social people are, more social they are when they're drank some alcohol in moderation is all I recommend. Then yeah, maybe they could do a drink a little bit more than they do in Perm. Actually, I already noticed that in Ukraine. I would say that because I commented on it 5 years ago, I'm pretty sure on this channel before the invasion in 2022, that Ukrainians don't drink that much compared to what you'd imagine, and definitely not compared to a generation ago. So 15 years ago, they definitely drank a way more. So it would have been 20 years now if I was talking 5 years ago. And they drank at the time a lot less than Irish people in general. John says it's drawn into the Good Friday Agreement that if the majority of Ireland and the North vote for Northern, that's it. Yep. Early 30s, later greater, prefer petite women, smaller frames, not necessarily. Okay. So then, yeah, you should go to Chișinău in that case. But, it's if you just show up in Chișinău with no plan and walk around, not sure how it's going to go. I mean, you can invest in my guide, I guess, if you want to know the places to go out, but you're going to be building no mates. I see guys like this. Yeah, because sometimes guys come over to me. I mean, I'm doing person. I mean, if you've watched content for Moldova, they probably found my channel. So it's normal. Like I did the interview with Javier he's American, but he's El Salvadorian American. And yeah, I met him and his friend, another friend his friend is from Peru, I think. And I must have met them 3 years ago because I think they came up to me in the street in Odessa and they spent a huge amount of time in Moldova. They probably spent 2 years in total. And it was a struggle for them, if I remember, in the first 6 months. I mean, they came for 3 months. I think they were doing visa free, and then they would come back 3 months later. And yeah, because they didn't have a social circle. It was a bit tough just because they were perceived as tourists. But then they built up their social circle and things took off for them. So yeah, that's the thing about this region in 2026. John Doe says, if Ukraine beats Russia, that's going to be incredible. Zelensky, with on history, is an amazing leader. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like Churchill. I mean, will we all be waxing lyrical about Churchill if he lost the war, considering a lot of the decisions he made before the war? And, early on in the 20th century, I don't think so. He wouldn't be remembered the same way. But winning, victors write the right history at the end of the day. John Doe says, I was at the religion. John says that he was at the Hungarian parliament yesterday and last night. What a celebration. There's an atmosphere. Sounds great. I know Magyar was sworn in there as prime minister. So the end of the Orban era has come to pass. Okay. Well, it's almost 11 o'clock. That means that we've only been on for 1 hour, 50 minutes. Or probably 1 hour 45 because I think I started 5 minutes later. I don't have really anything to talk about relationships or anything this time. I didn't come across any interesting content other than what I've already incorporated into the presentation in the sense of watching a lot of these guys, whether they classify themselves as passport bros or not, kind of had that vibe about it. But they were definitely more the digital drifter types. And yeah, it just seems like they're chasing this mythical place that's still supposed to exist. And once they discover it and they put it out on YouTube, like one of the guy's videos, and he said, go to Manaus, I think, and somewhere else. Well, guess what's going to happen? Lots of guys are going to show up in Manaus or wherever it is in Brazil, and it's going to be alpha decay as a strategy. And suddenly they're going to go, oh no, we can't, we need to go further into the interior. And they're going to be in some town of 50,000 people in the Brazilian interior in the Amazon. Yeah, it's just like the low hanging fruit is gone. That said, I did relay that I got some feedback from a British guy that I met during the summer in Chișinău, and he went to the Philippines and he said he's very happy there and that he was struggling in Chișinău to make friends. Also, the dating scene. You know, you go somewhere where he has foreigner factor. He was like, I mean, is he an average Joe? I don't know. Maybe he's not going to be an average Joe in the Philippines. That's for sure. He was remote working around 40. Yeah, I mean, he's not. There's nothing weird about him in terms of being fat or having some being deformed or anything like that. So yeah, it just takes a lot more time to invest. It's like with the two guys, like Javier and his friend from Peru, that they had to invest a lot of time into Chișinău to get the return on investment. And the British guy was there for a month and he wasn't wasn't getting any traction. He wasn't particularly enamored of Chișinău, I guess, even though he agreed the women are way better looking from the dating point of view. And obviously it's in Europe as opposed to going to the Philippines. The Philippines is a country I've never been to, so can't comment on it. I've had flings with Filipinas, one particularly good looking one when I was in Dubai all those years ago. Interesting. And yeah, basically he's enjoying it. I mean, the weather, beaches, I guess that's a plus for the Philippines, and there's foreigner factor for sure. But at the same time, it's less developed. It's different culture. You may be sponsoring the extended family, so a lot of things to think about. What is the best? Do you want to live there really? Yeah, there's better. Just depends on what fit you're looking for. And I don't think that it will last much longer. I think because even I tell you to go to the Philippines if you're some sort of like loser back home type, I guess. It's your last chance. I was thinking of this gargoyle, like 55-year-old obese guy from somewhere obscure in the boondocks. And yeah, maybe his last chance is a remote Filipino island where you can have these big age gap marriage and be the big catch in the village. After that, I guess they'll be going to obscure African villages. I mean, I guess it's just go to the next phase because now there's so many the cost to to distribute the information about these things is getting lower and lower. People make vlogs; they just need a phone nowadays, or they write on a vlog, but they have their own communities. So alpha decay, they just give the more guys who do it, the less profitable it is for each of them. So you need to be thinking above that level, in my opinion. But for now, Philippines, and he reported back positive. I think he went to Thailand afterwards. I have another. There's a guy who's appeared on my channel. We did a vodcast back in the day, Lloyd, and he has his own online business, and he is in Vietnam at the moment, and he's saying he's enjoying it. But again, the first thing to say, yeah, Conor, the girl's not as good looking as in your region. It's like at least 1 point difference on average, if not more than that. I also think the same for Colombia. I don't understand the dating side of going to Colombia when I look at it in terms of beauty. At least 1 point drop, at least. And even the people get offended, even though they're not Colombian, when I point it out. I don't know why. Wayne says, that's me booking a flight to Philippines now or time to Vietnam. Wayne, I thought that you were going to hang out in other parts of New Europe. Or have you given up on it and you're going to go to the Philippines? I wouldn't describe you as a gargoyle, by the way. But yeah, if you are going to go there, of course, you'll report to us here, and I can relay it on. So I don't know if later graders still there. Maybe you want to provide some more background information that's a little bit more detailed. but we already addressed that probably Chișinău is better for you. But what are you going to do when you get to Chișinău? Are you just going to show up and hope for the best? Is that the plan? I think it was Obama said that hope is not a strategy, or did he have just hope in his campaign slogans? I don't remember. It was the opposite. Okay, any more questions or comments? Wayne is joking, but he's open to going wherever. Yeah, I was kind of thinking you were at that point of booking the one-way flight to Philippines or bust. I think you can, you can do pretty well in this region, and it's from what I see as being your past experience. So, upcoming content on this channel. Hopefully next week, there'll be a new video from Ukraine outlining 5 cities to go to this summer. So that'll give you an idea if you are considering to come to Ukraine. I already have 2 videos that I made in the last few months. You can check them out on the channel. Also an investment video with Doug from Sweden, who's invested here in a few properties. And yeah, I already filmed 2 new vodka vodkas. There was a bit of a debate when I asked some of my clients which do you prefer. Some of you seem to come on here to the live streams, and some others tell you like, yeah, I don't have 4 hours on a Sunday to spend. I mean, you can always listen at double speed, I guess, and then you have in 2 hours. So they prefer, and they tell me they want more vodka vodkas. They prefer this more visual style with the vlogs. Like they love the Moldova video. So yeah, I think with the change of the seasons, I will produce more of that content. But I already have 2 filmed, and I will also make some videos comparing this region with the evil empire, the Russian Reich, and probably react to some of the people who promote it and actually show the juxtaposition between why you should come here. And I think it's going to be more obvious to people than if I made these videos 2 years ago, if I make them now with the collapsing Russian economy, which was pretty foreseeable. So all those people telling you, move to Russia, it's all wonderful here, and even the weather is amazing. I mean, what a bunch of BS. And if you can't even criticize the weather, that tells you all you need to know about Russian society. Donald says, looks like I won't be going anywhere. Found out that he has heart failure. Oh, God. Okay, sorry to hear that, Don. Oh, you're in heat failure. I thought that he's heart failure. I don't know. Maybe, maybe confirm there. If you are just doing some research about this region and you'd like to go a bit deeper, then you can go and check out my insider resources page. I have there my guides, my insider guides with my favorite cafes, bars, clubs, restaurants, shisha lounges for lots of places in the region. I have one for wonderful Warsaw. I have one for the beautiful Baltics, the New York Baltics, so Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. I have one for magical Moldova. I have one for coming here to Ukraine during the war. And I have one for classic Kazakhstan. All down below, and you can invest in them there. And yeah, we'll have one eventually about Romania. That's the other one that I said I would make, but I need to go back and spend a good amount of more time in Bucharest and maybe in Iași. Would I really cover anywhere else? I like Transylvania so much, but at that point that we're talking about, I need to spend a few months. Then go down to Constanza, hang out in my mind. This sounds like a massive project for me to figure it all out. But yeah, I guess maybe it will end up being Bucharest and maybe Iași. We'll see where I am by the end of the summer. And that, if you're interested in the Romanian one, I guess write me an email, Conor@conorclient.com. I can send you the details on that. And you also have my language programs, one for Russian, one for Ukrainian. And there are some curated playlists there that give you lots of extra information, allow you to do your basic research. If you would like to have a bespoke strategic plan so that you don't lose lots of time, emotions, and money when you come to this region, you're thinking maybe of coming in the next, we'll say, 6 months to a year, then you can invest in a consulting call like Jeff said he's going to do pretty soon. And there's a link to that down below. I also have my New York Insider AI, which is trained on my materials like these live streams. So that is a great resource. Also, I think if you're doing the research phase that you can invest in that, that's also available. It's also included in a lot of the consulting call packages now for 3, 6, or 12 months. You can go check that great stuff. There's links down below. And if you would like my in-person mentoring for up to a week in a city in the region, then you can go to my flagship program, the New Europe Experience. It is by application only. Don't accept everybody. It's not some tourist tour where you just fill another seat on the bus. Have to make sure it's a good fit for us to work together. And then you also get access to, we'll go out with my local crew, my social circle, business contacts for the city that you're going to, and it will be an unforgettable week together. And then obviously you'll have me there in person. Also, when you're socializing, I can, I guess, coach you in real time or mentor you in real time. So whether it's networking with other high value individuals, or you want to obviously create a spark with the beautiful women in this region, then you have me with you. We'll go out and socialize at the best places, in my opinion, for you in the city. And some of my clients have even got married with models at the end of the day, and they have families with them. That's not how I thought this channel would result in these beautiful families when I started out back in 2018 with the Czar experience, but that is the way it has gone. So I'm I'm sometimes accused of being super superficial because I focus on, dating that model level beauty, model maxing, as someone accused me of pretty recently. But I admit, guilty discharged. And I didn't really understand why that was supposed to be a problem. It's a bit like telling someone who's a channel in part about making money that, yeah, money doesn't make you happy. Well, yeah, if you make 1 billion as opposed to 50 million, I think statistically you don't get any happier. But, it says what it does in the tin. And yeah, if I want to learn how to make more money, I'm going to listen to the guy who knows how to make more money. So if you want to date beautiful women, you listen to the guy who knows how to date beautiful women. Not the guy who says that you should only date sixes, top sixes, because then you don't have to do blah, blah, like that. A clown of the earth was Mr. Foodle. What's his? Myron Gaines from whatever. I've even forgotten what it's called. It's so long ago, so I even watched that kind of more Jerry Springer type of entertainment of that apparently the young crowd watch, leading them astray. Wayne says Iași has a lot of college students. Yeah, there are a lot of universities there. It's obviously close to the Moldovan border, so there are Moldovans. And Josh says that it's surprisingly scenic. Surprisingly scenic. I think, yeah, I mean, it's got that palace in the center that was refurbished. And I went there. I think I told you, Josh, that I went there. When was the first time I was in Iași? It's probably 15 years ago. I think I even looked up in our private correspondence. I went and looked at my flight in my email to see how many years ago was it when I flew. Because remember, I flew to Iași. It was a bit rough and very underwhelming at the time. I remember just mainly looking at the architecture, and then I went back maybe it's a decade ago, and the nightlife wasn't up to much when I went. But now, when I was back recently, because I've been a few times in the last 2 years to Iași, yeah, it's up and coming city, I would say. It's pretty nice there. Not sure how great the nightlife is, but the early evening is pretty social in the center. So yeah, it's not a backwater like it used to be. Man, it used to be rough. That was a lot of Romanian cities, like even 10 years ago. It was like the one place where I told already the story of Bucharest station. Some guy almost assaulted me. He was like super aggressive, and he hated English people. I mean, trying to explain to him from Ireland wasn't much help. Yeah. But in the end, he calmed down. He actually wrote me an email because I basically get rid of him. I gave him my business card. And yeah, he just had a bad experience. He had been drinking in the train station and saw me as a foreigner and decided to harass me. Yeah. Anyways, at least we didn't get into a physical altercation. Or he didn't push me off the platform or something mad. How interesting that he wrote me an email to apologize. I told him I was there vlogging. I had my vlogging camera. It was on my suitcase as well. So I was just starting with the vlogging. I didn't know which direction the channel would go. I was just starting with it. It was probably, I think it was 2017. Yeah, I remember now because I made a video afterwards. It's before I even had a video editor. So when did I start with having a video editor? I have to really think. It might even have been 2016 because I think I started with Carrillo with my editing my videos in 2017. So it was probably either the summer of 2017 because I remember it was hot. I made a video about going to Bukovina, going to the Romanian part, then across the border. So I remember I took the train from Bucharest station all the way to Socialize afterwards. Yeah. Those were the days where Romania was a lot dodgier than it is now. Now it's not as dodgy for sure. Any other questions or comments, lads? And any ladies who have filtered in here? Anything you want to know about the success system, which obviously we can discuss in greater detail how it applies to your bespoke plan here in the region on either consulting call or in person. Again, the links to all that good stuff is down below. Go check them out. And if you are interested in coming to Ukraine in summer 2026, you need to apply by the end of this week, basically. Sunday next week, May 17th. Some of you have expressed interest in going to Lviv. Lviv is already good to go to. Odessa summer season kicks off last weekend of May. I think Odessa is going to be best. June, July. Sometimes it even gets a little bit chilly in August here. But the high season for tourism, where there's going to be lots of people traveling to Odessa, everyone's going to be packed, the beach clubs, everything, because there aren't really any other places in Ukraine for people to go to. With this war, that's going to be June and July, especially end of June and into July. After that, then it starts to, be less touristic. Jeffy says, looking forward to a cafe culture with great restaurants. Riga seems to cover that. Yes, for sure. Like it has where all the tourists hang out, and there's only one or two places that are really worth going to there. Wayne has actually been with me there. And then you got the other part of the city where we hung out, in the club we hung out with Wayne, where we partied till like 7 or 8 in the morning on New Year's. Big fan of red wines. Got me interested in Moldova. Yes, for the wine. Best kept secret for wine in Europe. And it's not really even a secret anymore. I think their exports of wine have like gone up so much. I can't remember what it is in general, but it's like several multiples in the last 5 years. Just basically has been discovered. John asks, what do I like about Transylvania and Romania? It has amazing scenery, beautiful mountains. People are a bit more, like Bucharest is quite an aggressive as a city. Now, it's not as dangerous, dodgy as I just said as it used to be 10 years ago, but they're a little bit more, they're less pushy in Transylvania. The people live there. It's a little bit more, it's a bit more elegant, maybe. Maybe not elegant is not the right word. It's a bit more bucolic with the nature, and it just feels a bit more civilized in a way. Bucharest can be really aggressive in certain parts and a bit trashy in terms of style. In general, as a city, of course, you have pockets where people are sophisticated and elegant. This is a big city. It's probably it's maybe 3 million people there. In general, it's just a very different atmosphere in Transylvania. For me as a place to travel to, it would get too small to live in, I think, unless you were married to someone from there and having your family. That'd be great, like a countryside kind of lifestyle. For sure, and I thought about doing it almost 20 years ago, was buying one of these Saxon German farmhouses and doing it up. You could have gotten it literally for 5,000 euros. I bought the title for it back when I was looking at it 20 years ago. And it was the one that Prince Charles of Wales, now King Charles, he was Prince Charles at the time, he owns property there. It's called Viskri, or Deutsche Weiskirche. And it's that's what I would do. But the infrastructure to get down to those places, it's not the best. They still haven't built a road. I was back there, but it's a few years ago, because we did the video from Transylvania when? It was 2017, Because remember, my curator did the editing. So now it's 9 years ago, last time we were in Transylvania. It's a cool trip, that one. But that was more as a trip. I don't think I'd really live there. I just prefer living further to the east than Romania, personally. Let's see. Marcus, do they have winery tours in Moldova? There are so many nowadays that if I have enough time, I'll go to some of my favorite wineries and soon some new vineyards to review for you. I've been to 10 already. They're in the guide to Magyar Moldova. But yeah, there's just so many with tours. I think there's like 200 that actually have some form of tour or something I read. And their tourist information now. So there's just so many new vineyards all the time in Moldova. So yeah, it's pretty cool for that sense. Donald writes, Odessa and Kyiv will be great for you, for him. Okay, cool, man. Hopefully you get over here. Gold Kingsman says that he heard there's a haunted forest in Romania. Not sure where that is. He's over in the west of Romania. Wayne says that he needs to find the time to be in Odessa in June. His normal hotel is full, but I'm trying to convince them to give me a week to 10 days. Yeah, there's a thing in because a German friend was telling me that yeah, renting a hotel in Odessa in June or July, like it's hard to get a place at the best places already because yeah, there are few options for the people who can't leave Ukraine, for Ukrainian men who have money and want to come down for a week to 2 weeks to Odessa. It really is only Odessa if they want to go to the seaside in Ukraine. So and they can't leave a lot of them. So it is what it is. So it's going to be so packed in June, July here. But nearly entirely local tourism. There's almost no international tourism. I went to the opening 2 weeks ago of a place, and I heard one person speak English. That's it. So yeah, or any other foreign language. John says the town that King Charles has a property and lovely, truly fit for a king. Yes, I have it in the vlog from 2017. Maybe I'll put it down below and up in a card. It's my Transylvania vlog. Jeffy says researching Romania spoke with a girl from there. Said Transylvania is still greatly influenced, at least architecturally, with the cuisine a little less by the Saxon German culture. Yeah, there aren't that many German speakers left. Most of them left in '89 when they had the opportunity to go. And Ceausescu was even selling them to Romania, as he did with a lot of Jews to Israel for money to get out of Romania during the communist era. So there aren't that many left. Maybe the kids will want to come back and live in Romania and buy property and rejuvenate this German culture in Romania. And yeah, when I was looking, I mean, I stayed in this Fiscri place. As I said, it's probably almost 20 years ago at this point. Let me see, 20 years ago would have been 2006. No, it's not. It's 15 years ago when I was there. John said he drove to both King Charles properties and the road into as well. Yeah, that road. What year were you there? Josh says the hotels in Odessa are really cheap right now. Yeah, it was the same during the winter. They were basically for nothing, but everybody comes. So Ukrainians take holidays. It's kind of second half of June, first half of July. So yeah, they basically the whole place will be sold out for that month, and it will be pretty wild here in terms of the nightlife, considering what it will be, what it's like the rest of the year. Hoya Bachu Forest. Okay, I'll go and look that up and see where it is. Let me see what that is. It is near Cluj-Napoca. Okay. It's considered the most haunted forest in the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania, famous for its twisted trees, paranormal reports, and UFO sightings since the 1960s. It offers spooky guided night tours. Okay, it's just some. That's a lot. You know, tourism in Romania. They have the whole Dracula scam, as I call it. It's just like so much Dracula paraphernalia. Yeah, Vlad Tepes is a real person. He's a national hero. He was an absolute sociopath, a horrific, psychopathic killer. I'm not sure if he's supposed to be considered a psychopath or sociopath. Anyways, Vlad the Impaler was the inspiration for the name, but it's the fantasy of British Irish author called Bram Stoker. Watch out for vampires. Yeah, there are no vampires. We made it up in Dublin. And when was Dracula the book written? When did Bram Stoker? I think it was 19th century, right? And he took the name, which means little dragon, because Vlad Tepes' father was known as the dragon, and then he was known as the little dragon, the son. So Bram Stoker just took like the name, but it's nothing to do with the historical character of Dracula, who's better known as Vlad Tepes or Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the Third. Yeah, I just pulled it up. Bram Stoker, the Irish author, never visited Transylvania and likely imagined the kitchen based on descriptions of Bran. Okay, that's the castle. So he was never there. It's got very little to do. Yeah, market outside Romania is Dracula's castle. There's a few places now they're trying to mark it as Dracula's castle. And they have all this kitsch paraphernalia there. It's so annoying. I mean, the castle's nice to look at, but it's not amazing. There are nicer architectural sites to see in Romania, and because of this marketing, it just has so much tourism. It's funny how marketing works. And they all go Dracula's castle, and I think Vlad Tepes was he? I think he wasn't really there, basically. The actual historical figure, but it's interesting to read the history and travel around the region of Transylvania. I would definitely recommend it. You've got that famous road that I couldn't pronounce. I've actually what is the name? Is it? Got it's coming up to me in Cyrillic here. Yeah, Transfiguration, I think is how you pronounce it. It's this like crazy hairpin lined road through the mountains that I also filmed in that vlog. We drove it. And yeah, it was pretty cool, the whole thing. It just started to rain when we got there. We almost didn't do it, but it was on the way back. That was a remarkable road trip. A lot of interesting things happened, I have to say. So brings back memories. Yes, I definitely recommend going to Transylvania. Let me see what other comments we have here. He fought off the Muslims, yes. He mass murdered a lot of different ethnicities, but he had been taken to the Sultan's capital in Constantinople as a child and grown up in Muslim culture. So he understood his enemy basically very well because he'd grown up with them. So that's why he was particularly good at intimidating the, what are they called, Janissaries, the crack troops of the Sultan. I'm not sure if they had that name. They were at a certain point in the Ottoman Emperor called that. There are more, Mark says, there is more to vampires than Vlad and Bran, yeah. But it's a fantasy. Yeah, apparently he was only in Bran once, yeah, Vlad Tepes. Vlad Impaler lived in Sigurdswara, I think. You want to write there, John. And the Hyper Dracula is Brasov. Donald asks, is Minsk as good as Odessa? No, Minsk is... I already referred to in detail in the last live stream, Don. The golden age of Minsk, which I lived through in 2018 and 2019, is long gone. There's hardly a good restaurant, bar, or club left. The youth that's educated flees the country and emigrates to Lithuania and Poland. Lukashenko at one point was talked about importing 200,000 Pakistanis to replace them. Not sure how much progress he made in that. When I look at the only channel that seems to be still based in Belarus in English that discusses like relocation there or hanging out there, the others all left. That's Minsk Guide with Andrei, who helped one of my clients back in the day with a visa, e-visa because he was Bolivian. And actually I had a call with him once as well. And I met him in person. Anyways, he seemed to be helping a lot of Indians at one point with moving there. So I also interviewed Galina back in the day from the marriage agency. She says some guys moved there who were clients. I find that bizarre why you'd want to go there, especially the current geopolitical situation. The reality is, if you own property in Belarus as a foreigner and they unite, i.e. Russia annexes Belarus, Russia, based on precedent, will redefine or rezone your property as being border property, which means a foreigner cannot legally own it, which means you will then at that point have to become a Russian citizen. And if you are a man of military age, you're going to be eligible for conscription. In fact, even if you just have permanent residency, you will probably be eligible for Russian conscription anyways. So yeah, investing in Belarus is like investing in Russia at the moment. Not quite as bad because it hasn't been annexed. And I still think that Lukashenko will outsmart Putin. Putin is not having his best days recently, so it's definitely possible that Lukashenko survives longer than Putin. But yeah, there's no real reason to go there. I don't see the point in going there. The best place, the places where I filmed it, most of them are closed. There's one or two that are still open, but it's like 20% of the, how would you describe, vitality that it had when I filmed it in 2019 last. So yeah, the last Belarusian, please turn off the light on your way out. Yeah, because that place has unfortunately been wrecked. I mean, Lukashenko made his decision about what he's going to do. He chased most of the productive people out and the artistic people. And yeah, the alternative, you got to look at the alternative. They probably, I mean, if the opposition had been successful and we'd had the real election winner become president, Russia probably would have invaded the country and annexed it straight away. And would the Belarusians be able to fight off the Russians like Ukrainians have done? Probably not. So yeah, maybe he's even the lesser of two evils, to be frank. But anyways, it's just sad for Belarusians that so many of them have to immigrate. And yeah, there's so few of them that are there that when my videos back in the day are still in Belarus, it's like, even the foreigners have left. Because Andrei, the one YouTuber still going, is Belarusian. So, Gold Kings, man, there was a legend first. Vampire came from Ireland. Akatar. Okay, I didn't know that one. Abertak. Okay, interesting. I'll go look that up. Let me throw that into Google here as a reminder for post live stream. Steve is in the house. Hi, Conor, arriving again to stay in Warsaw in a few months from the US. I want to take a trip to Sumy in Ukraine. Is the best option a train from Warsaw to Kyiv and then to Sumy? Thanks. Wow, so you want to go to Sumy? I think back in the day we discussed Kharkiv, right? So it's not that far from Kharkiv. I went only once to Sumy ever, and that's a city I never vlogged. Yeah, I went there to hang out with a law student who I'd met partying in at a club in Kharkiv. So I went to hang out with her in Sumy. It was memorable, but it's a long time ago. It's like probably a decade ago, and yeah, I think my friend Carl was he. Yeah, he was when the nights out with him. It must be a decade ago that we met in Kharkiv. Anyways, so Sumy, yeah, your best bet from Warsaw is to go. I don't like the train. I think it's too long for me. But if you have, like, you have a lot of time, right? So you could go Lviv. What I would do is I would go to Lviv. I would hang out for a few days in Lviv, then go to Kyiv, hang out for a few days, and then go on to Sumy. But if you want to go quicker, obviously, then go straight to Kyiv and then to Sumy. He hasn't been back in Ukraine since the war. Just wondering, yes, why do you want to go all the way to Sumy? It's nearer to the front lines, so it's going to be targeted more by Russia. And yeah, you have to. It's not that exciting a city. I can't imagine there's much going on there nowadays, because a lot of people must have left. So yeah, I would say maybe hang out in Lviv if you haven't been back for a long time, Stephen, and enjoy that first. But if you're going to see a romantic interest, then yeah, I understand. But maybe you could also ask her then to go to Kyiv if you're going there to do some volunteering and help people. Then I understand you're probably hanging out to Sumy for that reason. Jeffy says there's a girl called Fisa from Belarus, very young, who's done some vlogs. So yeah, tons of Chinese and Russians. Yeah, she emigrated, it seems, to Germany, which sums it up. If the only young Belarusian girl doing the vlogs from Belarus had to immigrate, tells you all you need to know about the level of opportunities in Belarus in 2026. Josh says that there were restrictions on entering Sumy last year. He's not sure about now. So, Stephen, maybe let us know your purpose of your mission. If it's to go there for volunteer work, then I guess you probably have that all organized. Okay, I'm reading. It's an inspiration for Bram Stoker. The creation of his Dracula was Abertak or Avatar, an early Irish legend which was first collected in Patrick Weston Joyce's The Origin and History of Irish Names of Places. So he's the first kind of vampire. So actually, Dracula's 100% an Irish creation there. And these Romanians are taken advantage by claiming that they have this Dracula's castle. Shameless, shameless. Ireland should force them to pay royalties on the name Dracula. Okay, any further questions, comments? Normally have lots to say on the relationship side, but I don't really have much extra to add. I think I've kind of summed up the way things are, I think, pretty well for you guys in terms of the region and the latest strategies, of which this success system, that's part of it. Of course, you can show up. I mean, I did have that testimonial back in the day from Juan, who came on one trip with me to Minsk back in the day. It was 2019, and he met his wife at a club that's now closed down. That's a commercial club that everybody complained about. So there's a certain amount of luck in life. But he did come with me. His reason to contact me was that he was traveling around as bidding nomads and not making any progress. And yeah, he made his own luck. He was like very charismatic as a person, I have to say. Didn't let much. He was short because he's a good bit shorter than me. He was what, late to mid, I don't know, his mid to late 40s. One didn't speak a huge amount of English because me, him, and Philip all spoke in Spanish all the time. So not a lick of Russian, but he just like no approach anxiety whatsoever. He just like fully confident. But this is the thing. Us older guys, we're not like the youngins that grew up with screens, so we learn to talk to people. And yeah, in person shows what can be done. But is that going to be typical as an experience? Yeah, there's just a certain amount of luck in everything, in business, in life, in love. So you gotta position yourself so you take as much luck out of it as possible. Otherwise, you can be spending years traveling around. Donald says, "Don't come to US." He's hoping to retire in Europe. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think things are going to get worse in the US before they get better. So it just depends where you are. I mean, I guess you're part of the looting class that you can see at the moment, then you're probably enjoying it. But that's like what percentage of the US population? Steve says, if you can believe the Lee Harry Oswald had an apartment in Minsk. Yes, yeah, that's true. Which was a tourist attraction. You can look at the photo. Yeah. I must have gone and looked at it, but I don't really remember it being that remarkable. I spent so much time in Minsk in 2018 and 2019. I guess Moldova is the new Belarus in that sense, because I document that. And it was a place that was pretty untouched by YouTubers before Ben Rich started to film there, aka Bold and Bankrupt. Do I have any other points that I missed? I just didn't have much to say. I can give you a little bit of teaser for my live stream tomorrow. For the second channel, the May 9th parade in Moscow was complete debacle for Vladimir Putin. In effect, to summarize, seemed that he called Donald Trump and basically begged Trump to call Zelensky and demand that they didn't attack the parade and called this ceasefire, which, I mean, there's still lots of fighting going on. But we haven't been hit here in Odessa in the last few days, so I guess it's less intense than it would have been before, but they're just saving up the munitions. They'll fire them either tomorrow or the day after. So if you live here, it doesn't make any difference. And yeah, I watched the speech by Putin. No military equipment. The highlight was North American. North American. What a Freudian slip. Sorry, guys, if you're American. But your president leans pro-Russian at the moment. I mean, he's basically doing Putin's bidding by trying to get Zelensky not to attack the parade. But anyways, it was North Korean troops. Hopefully, it doesn't ever get to the point where North American troops are marching in the May 9th parade with Putin there. And that was the highlight, was these North Korean troops marching. They had a few foreign leaders. The president of Kazakhstan was there. Lukashenko from Belarus was there, and a few others. But basically, it was very poorly attended. And yeah, I think the Kazakh president only actually went to the parade when Zelensky said he wouldn't attack it. Lukashenko was going anyways. I just found it amusing because someone wrote me, "Oh, do you know the Kazakh president was there all of a sudden?" I was like, he didn't. He wasn't going before Zelensky said guarantee that he wasn't going to send some drones to attack it. But the whole thing is a huge humiliation for Putin. Zelensky passed a law the day before saying that that Putin's allowed to hold a parade, and he gave the coordinates of Red Square. That's where he's allowed to hold it. And we promised not to attack him in there. Like the whole thing is, when you look at how it started in 2022 with this huge demonstration, like he should have. If Putin had any sense, he would have declared victory after they had lost after 3 or 4 weeks, and just retreated back to the line of contact from 22nd of February, right? So where the line of contact was before, and declare victory. Just made up he won. But no, he did this huge show of force on Red Square for the May night parade, and has persisted to destroy the Russian economy in the meantime. Now they're in a world of trouble. They're losing more soldiers than they can recruit with all that money per month that they offer. Gherkin says at this point, or Skorakov, if you want to use his nom de guerre, says that even if he goes for mobilization, it's too little too late. And there's finally some sort of opposition to him growing in Moscow. And that's not motivated by people feeling sorry for all the murders of Ukrainians or even the Russian soldiers. They don't care, Muslim. Unless it's actually, if I remember, most people in the Russian Federation don't give two hoots. What they care about is access to the internet. Influencers want to be able to sell stuff, and if the internet goes out and the cards aren't working and they're not getting paid, and they've started to complain about Putin, there's less money floating around the economy, so all the people stealing stuff are starting to look at each other because they're going to be fighting each other pretty soon over the scraps, and they ain't happy about what's going on because there's no end in sight. There's no path to victory. Donald Trump failed in throwing Zelensky under the bus when you have no cards, along with Vance back in when it was February 2025. And with midterms coming up, I don't know how much influence Trump is going to have afterwards. Just have to see what happens, or whether the Congress is going to have a Democratic majority, and that's going to make it harder for him to do what he wants in the last 2 years. We just have to see which way America votes. But Putin, he lost his ally Orban. He doesn't have an election unless there's a British election, snap election, because obviously Starmer's in a lot of trouble there. I guess if Reform get in with Nigel Farage, is like I can't even see Nigel Farage openly siding with him. He just won't be as probably helpful to Ukraine, but it's not going to be a game changer in the war. I think even if that happens, I think Macron being replaced in France with some sort of pro-Kremlin candidate is possible in 2027, but they might end up with a Maloney, so a hard right leader that's actually pro-Ukrainian. I think that is probably the way it's going to be. I don't really know enough about the candidates yet, but it just seems like no one wants to be associated in European politics with Putin anymore, and less with Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. So with that, then we reflect on how they rule. But that's what he's holding on for at this point. He has no strategy to win. Only best case scenario is that he basically just freezes the front lines at this point. But then he's got another set of problems in Russia with a collapsing economy, soldiers coming home from the front. He can then redeploy them, attack the Baltics to try and have a win. Yeah, I mean, it's none of these options are good options, because I don't think he's going to win in the Baltics. I think he's going to get humiliated again, because I think countries like Finland and Sweden, and hopefully Poland, at least Donald Tusk is there as prime minister. You never know with the president, but yeah, there will be enough support to defend the Baltics. And Ukraine will send help like they did in the Middle East. They will be sending the anti-drone warfare and probably their own troops to fight. I could foresee if there's some incursion in the Baltics to kick out the Russians there. So It's all going very pear-shaped for Vladimir Putin, but it's all been building up over the last 4 years. And things are going to get a lot worse. I mean, the possibility that Putin's replaced, I think, is the beginning of the end for him, and the beginning of the end of the Russo-Ukrainian war, of at least this phase, not maybe the whole war, because if they freeze the front lines, we don't know, in 10 years, under a new leader, they might just rebuild and attack again. That's always a big risk. That's why I don't think the Ukrainians should accept any deal that doesn't restore territorial integrity and forces Russia, basically the terms that Zelensky outlined at the end of 2022. Otherwise, they just give Russia the ability to rebuild, learn their mistakes, come back bigger and stronger, maybe in the 2030s, and attack us again. Russia has to stop being an aggressive, revanchist empire, and that probably means it needs to decolonize further. I just can't see it reforming. And it needs a huge defeat in order to push Russian society to make those changes. If they, keep the can down the road, maybe even Putin survives, it'll be hard for him, and he just turns into a completely totalitarian state. We have a big North Korea with, like place. So yeah, it's all very bad for Putin. And yeah, the chance of Ukraine losing the war now are very remote. The question is, how is it going to end and when? So yeah, if you want to experience Ukraine during this historic time, then come this summer. Yeah. But again, you need to be prepared for the psychological impact of being here. So, Gold King Spencer, have friends US side to visit, otherwise wouldn't head there. Oh yeah. Do I think that Putin will be assassinated or coup d'etat will take him out? Well, I don't think he'll be. It could be coup d'etat, which he's assassinated, I guess, but I don't think he can retire. Realistically, where is he going to go into exile? I just don't see it happening. I don't see that he's going to accept doing that. So it would seem that I can't see there being just public protests are big enough. I mean, there may be public protests, but they will be small part. It will be a palace coup. Because I just don't see how he's going to retire. So his health may take a turn for the worst. He may fall out of a window himself. Let's see. Yeah, I just don't see how he's going to accept retiring. It's going to be so humiliating for him. I think he'll hang on for the end till the end, and that will probably mean that he'll be no longer with us in order to facilitate that. Stephen says he was amazed to see the North Korean flag flying in Warsaw, Poland a few months ago. I never knew they had an embassy there. Okay, I've seen their embassy in Berlin. I had to take some photos, and yeah. Don says he's absolutely amazed Ukrainians have changed the war forever. They shouldn't have given away the nuclear weapons. The US screwed Ukraine. Yeah, that's clear, but you also got to look at that alternative history. If Ukraine had had nuclear weapons, first they would have to been able to control them. I guess they would have been able to eventually. Then maybe they would have been an aggressive, revanchist state. We don't know what they would have done to those nuclear weapons. Maybe they would have said, hey, Belarus, in that scenario, I guess, would have had them as well. But I don't think Belarus had very many. Because also Kazakhstan gave up there were some in Kazakhstan, some in Belarus, and some in Ukraine. But Ukraine had the most. So think about it, with Yanukovych as president, and it being a nuclear power, how would he have behaved? Yeah, that's a bit of a scary scenario as well. So, because the guy was a moron. I mean, he's still alive, actually. Sometimes I forget. And he would have been in charge of nuclear power. Yeah, you don't know how it worked out. Maybe he would have started threatening someone else, threatening Poland with them. So, as it turned out, it looks very bad because, yeah, they gave them up, and obviously it wasn't respected, the Budapest Memorandum. U.S. better buy drones from Ukraine before China takes over the U.S. Yeah. According to Donald Trump, they don't need Ukraine's help. Even though now one of the president's sons is actually investing in a drone company that has a lot of ties with Ukraine, from what I read. So basically, maybe that's the way to get the White House on Ukraine's side, is just make the Trump family rich. As disgusting as that is, diplomatically speaking, but that's just the clever move. Stephen says, if you're going to be in Warsaw from July through October, you're going to get Hard Rock Cafe. Okay. You always bring up Hard Rock Cafe and that other place in Odessa. That was American Diner. But anyways, write me a message when you get there. We know each other for many years. Stephen was the source of the Polish loophole information for me way back. I think it was 2018 you told me about it. Was it 2019? I think even 2018. And I had no need for that information. I had no clients who were American and needed to stay longer than 90 days every 180 in Poland at the time. But fast forward to 2023, suddenly that was very valuable information. So you even sent me a copy of the diplomatic communications that constituted the agreement. But now that's gone, in case anyone's wondering, since last October. So if you're American, you need your Schengen visa. Jeffy says Trump is too busy kissing Netanyahu's ass, but better for Ukraine. He's trying. Yes, 100%. As long as he's not thinking too much about Ukraine, all the best, all the better for Ukraine. Just don't send over JD Vance. Wow, I'm joking. Because JD Vance, like none of the leading members of the administration have even come to Ukraine. Never mind JD Vance. Stevie Witkoff is supposed to be the main negotiator and diplomat involved, even though that should be Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio hasn't, I don't think Marco Rubio even been to Kyiv since the invasion happened. I don't remember. Maybe I can look that up. Has Marco Rubio been in Kyiv? Because Stevie Witkoff has not been. He just keeps running over to Putin since he's a huge fan. Is it? Ever been? The prompt that comes up is, has Marco Rubio ever been to Cuba? Well, that's clearly not the case. There's no public record of Marco Rubio visiting Kyiv, Ukraine. As Secretary of State, he has never gone. Crazy. And Boris Johnson, when it was way more dangerous, just walked down center of Kyiv, down in Chreshchatyk. Just seeing. How many times did Biden go? He was there. Okay, I think he only went. He went just before the 1 year anniversary. Okay. So Sleepy Joe Biden traveled to Kyiv during the war, but Sleepy Donald Trump doesn't seem interested in coming, and nor does not so sleepy JD Vance or Marco Rubio or Stevie Witkoff. It's a complete and utter diplomatic clown show that you have realtors running U.S. foreign policy. Stevie Witkoff and Kushner and Trump between them. Well, that's why you get the current situation in Iran. Steven says, who says Stevie Witkoff said? I researched, so that can't be Stevie Witkoff anyways. Stephen researched that the U.S. still has 10,000 U.S. troops stationed in southern Poland. I don't understand. I don't think Poland wants us there, but they're still there. You can look. Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to move these troops from Germany there. The only reason that Germany wants the U.S. troops to be stationed is simply because they're good for the local economy. That's basically the main political reason. Right? Those U.S. troops are almost certainly never going to be involved in actual fight in German territory. So they should be more forward deployed anyways to act as a better deterrence. So that infrastructure, in my opinion, should be moved, nearly all of it, further east. If NATO, for when post-Trump, and we have a president that actually is reliable for the NATO Article 5, because at the moment there's no NATO Article 5 deterrence that's convincing with respect to the US under Trump, right? He's just threatened too much. He's goaded Putin into invading too much. That, yeah, you can always take as a given that Putin will calculate that the US is not going to be much help if he does invade. Article 5 still applies, and you have a similar article in the EU treaties for many of the other countries, like the UK will be very relevant. The other Scandinavian countries like Sweden and Finland, Poland will get involved. Ukraine will come, even though it's not in NATO. So, in fact, to this point, it's like NATO needs to join Ukraine more than Ukraine needs to join NATO at this point, because this Article 5 deterrence, which is the main reason that Ukraine wanted to join. So the US Article 5 deterrence. Whether Donald Trump would actually take any action, he could surprise me and just about everyone else in that sort of actually sending troops in any way to kick, to eject Russian forces. That could happen, but there's no more deterrence, that's for sure, because it's not credible. He's just undermined the credibility that he would act. So even if he were to act, that's not the point. The point is you don't want Russia to even test that boundary by starting a kinetic war, by seizing territory and crossing that red line. You just don't want them to even think about it. But he's definitely ruined that at this point. I think the main deterrence is the other countries. So Ukraine, when all said and done, it doesn't really have that much interest in joining NATO anymore. Ironically, it's more likely that they would join it just to have more integration with the rest of Europe, access to more, I think could probably sell more stuff. That's the thing, by being more integrated, be an arms dealer. But yeah, Ukraine joining NATO, the NATO structure, would act as a bigger deterrence nowadays than Ukraine would get from joining itself. They'd actually provide more of a deterrence because they have a battle-hardened army with the latest tech, at least with drones and stuff. So, and then they could obviously merge that with the other capabilities of the other members, even if we take the US out of the equation. I mean, one solution for the NATO issue is to have a European part of it that's can operate autonomously from the US. But then why do we need the US involved anymore, other than them spending money at military bases, which seems to be Germany's main motivation to have them there? And all those bases are great for forward deployment for the US in Europe. So yeah, that's always been the quid pro quo. I mean, US provides the security guarantee, strategic nuclear weapon umbrella for Europe. And Europe doesn't pay formally tribute, but then they were buying all these US weapons. They were spending a lot less than they would on their own defense, but they were also spending that money in huge amounts on US weapons. So that's indirectly, obviously, filtering back to the US government and obviously providing employment in the US. And US got to be forward deployed, right? So there was a lot of benefits to that arrangement. But I've always believed the last 25 years that the EU should be independent strategically from the US in terms of defense. Be better in the long run. Putin once said that the US economy is based on people selling houses. Well, he's never been known for his economic nous. He's just lucky when he took over that resource prices ballooned, so he was able to divvy out more money that trickled down to people. Don says Kushner is he owns a building in New York 66th Street. Don says, I hope Moldova and Ukraine take back Transnistria. I think Transnistria will peacefully reintegrate back into Moldova. The question is when and whether it will be before Moldova joins the European Union. Jeffy says there's U.S. troops in the Baltics, Poland, Romania. So there's still a tripwire that the U.S. to forget Trump won't tolerate Putin doing something. Yeah, I don't think. This tripwire. It's not really worth anything at this point. You see, the problem is, Jeffy, you don't want to be in a position that tripwire gets activated. Then you're in a kinetic war between nuclear powers. You just want Putin just not to even think about it. But that's gone. Because, if Trump was there on Truth Social basically goading Russia to attack NATO members, which he's done multiple times, then where's the deterrence? It's gone. So he's created the scenario that it could be tested, and that's not what you want. No, does Putin really think that Trump's going to send soldiers? I don't think he's going to send. I'm pretty sure Putin doesn't think he's going to send them. He's more worried about the fact that he doesn't have the forces available. He'd have to take them out of Ukraine, first of all. And then what are the other countries going to do? He's like the UK, Finland, France. He's more worried about those countries doing something because that's enough of a deterrence. And it's not like he would attack Tallinn or Riga. He'd just probably go for some small town across the border and see what the reaction is. Plausible deniability, no insignia on the uniforms, try to see some town, claim that there's some separatists there that are, what they did in Donbass, basically. Some local collaborators with the intelligence services, and then see. I mean, maybe Trump does react, sends all these troops, then they just retreat the next day. And Putin denies that they were ever Russian. Oh, we don't know those people were, those tanks and drones. And yeah. And he says, okay, now I know that they're really serious and Trump is serious, so we won't try anything again. But then maybe Trump doesn't do anything and says, hey, you need to pay me to intervene. Otherwise, I want Greenland in exchange. Who knows what the guy would say? So then we all know what it means, basically. But again, you don't want to even get to that point. That's the whole point, whole reason why we have deterrence. Don says, if you want an international tax lawyer, my nephew married, school back top university in the US. Okay, cool. Jeff says, can't agree with a lot of your points. I'm an old Cold War warrior. That was in the nuclear weapons in Germany. The majority of the US is no fan of Putin. Yeah, I agree entirely. The majority of Americans dislike Putin immensely. Don't trust him. The majority of the Republican Party voters favor Ukraine. But amongst people who identify as MAGA, it's 40-60. And most of it is based around the cult of personality with Trump. So from what I can see, there's only probably 5% of Americans that support Putin and the Russians in this war. 5 to 10% maximum. But that really support him. But the thing is, Trump can't say a bad word about Putin, can say lots of bad things about Zelensky. You have J.D. Vance saying that the biggest achievement is cutting off aid to Ukraine. So they just go along with it. So it wouldn't be popular for Trump not to do anything, but a lot of the things he's done are unpopular, like starting this war in the Middle East and not succeeding. It would have been a different thing if he had succeeded strategically, quickly, like he done with Maduro, with abducting him, but he didn't. So that's interesting that you were in Germany. Were you there as a soldier stationed? And where were you in Germany? Well, we're talking about a very different era if you're talking about the Cold War. So if your original point was that Army to 1792, if your original point was the tripwire that Trump will be forced by the rest of the establishment to intervene, that's interesting. But that's still doesn't. The question then is, does Putin believe that? And yeah, well, we obviously can't get inside Putin's mind. I wouldn't even want to be inside there. And yeah, it just looks like to me that deterrence itself has been undermined because you could try just a limited, a real special military operation, but actually just seize a town across the border, again, like they did in Crimea. And if the US does react, they can just withdraw the next day and just deny that they were ever there. And at that point, they'll have tested Article 5, something they never did during the Cold War. I mean, obviously there were confrontations and they shot down some planes and, there's a few close calls during the Cold War, but they never took that step to actually try to see somewhere in Germany or like that. Now it says, I think Trump will be impeached. Well, technically, impeachment means that they go to a trial, right? But it's not the same as being convicted. So it's possible he'd be impeached. Will he be convicted? I think you need too many people in the Senate, right? It's like 67, so it's unlikely. It would take some really egregious action that's been proved, I think, against Trump for that to happen. Yeah. Well, you're more optimistic than me about what would happen if they test it, but in the sense of the US's reaction. At the end of the day, I guess the other question is, does Putin believe that the other European partners of, say, Latvia and Estonia will send enough aid? That it will be another humiliation. It will probably end his reign and possibly even be the end of Putin physically, right? Think about this scenario. He attacks Latvia, they get their ass whooped, and whether US intervenes or not, with US help or not, then what Putin is done. So, yeah. One of the reasons it's in the Baltics is the Balts. I think a Russian general asked, why don't they seize the Baltics? He said, the problem is in the Balts. Yeah, the Baltic. Well, they did seize. I mean, the current Russian government. Is there enough of military presence amongst those countries? They don't have big armies. They're small populations. Yeah, when we say Balts, normally we mean Latvians and Lithuanians. Estonians are Finno-Ugric people. They're like Finns. Donald Trump has already been changed twice. Was it twice or once? I thought it was only once, but I'm forgetting. And yeah, I think also, I mean, we discussed it and we can discuss it more in the call. The price of property is very attractive in Latvia, considering it's in the EU. It's already factored into the price, the geopolitical risk. So because of that, it's good but cheaper. Also, the population of Latvia has been decreasing over the last 30 years since the end of communism. But with the rising economy, and especially this waterfront development in Riga, it's really going to put it on the map. It's been developed by these Emiratis, similar to the one they have in Belgrade. So, yeah, it's very possible that in a decade there'll be a lot of people moving to Riga. It's also a central hub in the region and that kind of New Europe Baltics. Biggest airport. They'll have Rail Baltica. It will be built to that point. It will go all the way up. It will go from Warsaw, Białystok, through Kaunas, through to Riga, then up to Tallinn via Pervo. Is that the name? Perno. And then eventually they're going to build a tunnel under the Gulf of Finland to Helsinki. So, yeah, it'll be a thriving part of Europe, I'm pretty sure. Steven says, just come back from Transnistria, October 2025. The wouldn't stamp my US passport. Only give, yeah, that's normal that they don't stamp your passport. I haven't been there for a long time. I think it was 2017 last time I was there. It's a long, long time ago. They have a tourist shop where they sell Russian memorabilia, sheriff organization. This is the mob. Sheriff. What an ironic name for an organized criminal group, a mobster group. Sheriff. I mean, it's a cartel. Allegedly from the former intelligence services there. That I guess are the same thing in Transnistria nowadays. But yeah, it's not a place I'll be going to with the current geopolitical situation, which is a pity because there's some nice parts to Transnistria just across the river. You can go and visit some natural places that look very nice at sunset, a few different gastronomic experiences, but there's enough of new things that I still need to get to in the rest of Moldova, so it's not the end of the world. Most people go because of the fact it's a de facto, not de jure, separatist republic that has own money, but it's a bit of a dump of a place. In general, not very inspiring, but interesting from a historical point of view. I've been a good few times, probably 20 times, and yeah, just not really keen on it at the moment. Plus, it's a place that's really, if you want to talk about depopulation, it's Transnistria. Its economy is more or less collapsed. Maybe collapsed a bit strong, but it's like it used to be richer than the rest of Moldova. Now it's dramatically poorer. So, not a place with a bright future unless it reintegrates back into Moldova, which I think it will do in due course. Okay. Since I didn't have so many talking points after my presentation this evening, yeah, that is everything. Just remind everybody of, yeah, I already did the upcoming content. Again, if you want to research, you're at the beginning of your journey, you got the insider resources down below. If you want the bespoke strategic plan for coming here to this region, you got the consulting option. And if you like my personal mentoring in person immersion, the flagship program in Europe experience, we'll spend up to a week together in a city, but it has to be a good fit for us to work together. So it's by application only. And if you are considering Ukraine this summer, then please apply before May 17th, which is next Sunday. So all those links are down below. What else is down below is a good link that maybe I haven't brought up. Yeah, if you want to be on my mailing list where my most loyal fans are, you've got the free New York playbook that you can get as PDF. You can go and grab that there. Also, my other channel, Inside Ukraine, where I deal more with the geopolitics in detail, so we can have these discussions for even longer. I guess tomorrow I'll have a summary video. I touched on it there. A little bit about the May 9th parade in Moscow, but subscribe to that other channel if you're interested in all that stuff, and hit the notification bell because YouTube won't tell you when I drop the videos. Otherwise, I have lots of other playlists down there as well. I don't really refer to the whole Ukrainian bride business so much, but if you're interested in all that, then go. There's a playlist. You can see the reactions there. I'm not going to really refer to that as much going forward. Discussed it with some of my clients over the last month or two. And also here in the live streams, it's like kind of a legacy phenomenon more and more. I see that they're rebranding. More of them are going. They're talking about Slavic and Eastern European. They're basically not really dealing so much with Ukraine. Very few of them are here in Ukraine. It's kind of getting almost irrelevant to what the reality on the ground here if you come to Ukraine or the rest of the region. And when I'm giving dating advice in general, what I'm thinking of is women who are attractive between 20 and 35. You could say 20 and 38, fine. And yeah, that's basically what we're talking about. We're not talking about women who are desperate, who are over 40, looking to emigrate as green card girls. That's not normally what I have in mind. So even if you're looking for an older demographic, you can still get a lot of value out of listening to my advice. But that is the focus. And there's a big difference at that point. And women are coming to the age of their fertility window. So their options start to decline a lot. And yeah, a lot of them are divorced, got kids from the previous relationship. One of the bad things in this region is that men don't play such a big role in their children's lives. If they get divorced, they kind of like just live with the mom, and a lot of them, they never meet the dad that much. Often he remarries, has a new family, and they're just left to fend for themselves. Child support is very low in Ukraine. It's like, I think it's $1,500 a month, and it's very hard to enforce if the guy doesn't pay, the father doesn't pay. So just have a lot of absentee fathers as a result. Divorce is over 50%. Yeah, family's not big. Fertility rate is very low in the region. So yeah, just so you're aware of all those things, all those elements. And yeah, girls are not desperate in this region either. They have lots of options. Maybe not as many as they lived in the States or in the UK or France or Germany, but they all have the internet, they all travel, they're all on Instagram. So yeah, they're not living under a rock, most of them. And they get to travel a good bit. And you've seen with the Ukrainians with this war, a lot of them have traveled for the first time, maybe the ones that weren't planning to travel. So they've already sampled life in Western Europe, most of them. Some of them have come back because they prefer it here. But there's no real novelty factor, I would say, in general, like there used to be maybe even it wasn't even 5 years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Any other observations, comments, or questions before I wrap it up? Unless something dramatic happens, I will not have the Sunday show next week. I will probably be, well, I'm not sure if I go to Chișinău yet or not, but it's highly possible since they open summer season. So it should be, I looked at the weather, looked decent in Chișinău next weekend. So it's possible I go to Moldova next weekend. And I'm already made that good video. It sums everything up. There's a link to it down below if you've missed it. If we're going to Moldova. And yeah, we'll start filming new content for Moldova now that I think about it. Yeah, I'll have some interesting podcasts early on, and then at the end of the summer, well, yeah, I have a lot of videos from Moldova on my travel board. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do what I did back in 2023. I think I made lots of videos. I made like 3 or 4 videos to sum up everything about traveling to Moldova, relocating to Moldova. I think 2026 would be good if I spend a lot of time in Moldova like I did last summer. I spent 2 months. Then, yeah, I'll be a lot more structured in getting more content to you. So I won't wait until the following March to or April to have the content from Moldova edited up like I've been doing with these vlogs. They come like 6 months. They come in time for the next summer to get you all excited. But I'll have some other long form content, not obviously like the live stream format. I think I'll do it just more the podcast and yeah, what I have in terms of addressing relocating to Moldova. Might do also buying real estate. Yeah, maybe that's also something I haven't done yet. So that could be a new thing. And whether you should relocate and give you the vlog like I did just recently. So we'll have that done a bit sooner. Also, should be going back to classy Kazakhstan pretty soon. Still to be confirmed the dates. But since I have 2 clients that want to go at the moment, and one of them has already paid me, and the other, yeah, maybe even next week we get confirmation on that. Yeah, could be going back to Kazakhstan also this summer, but we have to see about how that works out in the New Europe experience. So if you're interested in coming, apply down below. If you've already applied, send me an email, especially if it's for Ukraine. Please do so before May 17th. And yeah, anything else coming up? I will probably do some other interviews for the Vodka Podcast with other influencers who deal with other regions and other countries as a comparison. And yeah, be more in depth about investment in the region. I think that's one other thing that will be a bigger focus because obviously, if you come here, you want to buy property. As I said many times, investing in defense industry, in agriculture, and real estate are the 3 big things I see foreigners investing here. And in Moldova, it's opening businesses like, and I had Marlene Bar, the cocktail bar featured, for example. And Les is originally from Denmark. He's one of the co-founders, one of the co-owners there. And yeah, I think investing in those kind of businesses, a lot of people who do that as foreigners in Moldova, and obviously real estate as well is another thing if you're considering moving there that you should consider. Obviously, prices are going to be lower in Ukraine. Very clear reason for that, geopolitical risk with the war. But at the same time, yeah, my client who came with me on the trip to Moldova and Ukraine last summer, we went to Lviv, to Chernovtsi, to Chișinău, and then on to Odessa together. He actually liked Chișinău the most. He's just thinking in terms of, yeah, maybe buying property in a city in Ukraine that's in a more smaller place, closer to the front line. He's more of a risk taker in his profile. So he's thinking Mykolaiv or Kharkiv, where obviously I have that live stream from a few weeks ago about the demographic situation in Ukraine, what it might be in the future. I also referred to the real estate prices and where the biggest drops have been. So places closer to Russia, for obvious reasons, that are still under Ukrainian control. That's where we've seen the biggest drops in general. So the upside is that as it looks increasingly like a Ukrainian victory or some sort of prolonged stalemate, definitely not a Ukrainian defeat at this point, no Russian victory on Khreshchatyk, then the upside is, of course, those prices in the future for Kharkiv and Mykolaiv, when people move back post-war, then they would go up a lot more. But of course, there's a lot of risk involved, so you need to factor all that in and do your due diligence and take as much advice as possible. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you don't have any more questions and comments for this evening, I will, on this channel, you will see my content probably later this week. And yeah, there's already filmed 1 video for Ukraine and 2 Vodka podcasts. So they will be coming up. One with Alina McLeod. She is based in Bulgaria. She's originally born in Ukraine, Canadian, and she was on my channel on the podcast back in 2021. And also JT, who's from the Dominican Republic, who's married in Poland, has a channel that I think is quite good. So already interviewed those two. Yeah, they need to be edited up as well. So that will all be coming in the next 2 weeks. And yeah, I'll be on the live stream on the second channel tomorrow from Odessa Mama. So subscribe to that if you're interested. My pleasure to everybody. You're welcome. I see a lot of thanks there in the chat. It was a pleasure over the last 3 months of the Sunday show. I think it was very productive, a lot of great information. I got to know you guys a bit more as well. That's why I was inspired to make this Sunday show on this topic today about having a better plan in place and not leaving it up to the whims of serendipity in terms of your experience when you come here to countries like Moldova, Ukraine, Poland, Romania, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Kazakhstan and Czechia, and wherever else it could be. And you could say worldwide, it's becoming more the situation that kind of low-hanging fruit that you can just show up and be a hero, go from zero to hero by just changing your location. Those days are becoming harder and harder unless you're going to go somewhere really obscure henceforth. So come be the man with a plan, and you will be able to leverage those lifestyle arbitrage opportunities and gain that advantage here in New Europe. So I'm going to sign off from Odessa Mama and see you sometime soon. Probably the next content is that will be from Ukraine, but yeah, probably I'm going to make the newer content going forward from neighboring Moldova in the next few weeks. So la revedere and do pobачення and do перемоги from Odessa Mama on the shores of Black Sea. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic summer in spite of the war. I can feel it. Ciao, ciao, and ciao.